Chapter 1067. Creating Evidence for, Let's Do It Tonight Then. Lung Ruoxue thought for a moment, and decided that it was better to wait for them to launch a surprise attack. Yes. Lu Feng nodded excitedly. Little girl, aren't you going to take me there? Mo Yin said gloomily. Why didn't this little girl think of him when she wanted to do something bad? This made his heart feel extremely unbalanced. What are you doing? You have to preserve your innocence and uphold justice for us. Lung Ruoxue reminded. Mo Yin was speechless. Why did he have to keep his innocence? Even if he was in the same boat, he could still uphold justice. Who dared to say that he was not righteous? The little fox is right, you're not suitable for this kind of thing. Lu Feng also hurriedly said. Which part of me is not suitable? Mo Yin retorted. You look so righteous. Unlike me, in the eyes of those old fogies, I'm already beyond saving. Hee. Lu Feng said matter-of-factly. Hearing Lu Feng's twisted logic, Mo Yin was speechless. Moreover, he also understood that the little girl had no intention of letting him participate in this matter. And Lu Feng was also involved, so he had a chance. Sop. He was a little regretful. If he had known this would happen, he would have left Fiery City with them. Don't cry. I still need you to uphold justice for my brother. Seeing Mo Yan's conflicted and depressed expression, Lu Yu quickly comforted him. After all, he knew his own limits. Although this matter involved his younger brother, it was still an internal matter of the Craftsmen's Guild. If he got involved, it would make the guild lose face. Therefore, he just had to watch the show. I'm not crying. Mo Yin growled angrily. Lu Yu's comforting words were clearly adding fuel to the fire. At least he thought so. Good. You didn't cry? You didn't cry. Lu Yu said helplessly. He was clearly treating Mo Yin like a child. Seeing their interaction, Lung Ruoxue could not help but chuckle. If outsiders knew that the godlike figure in the eyes of the artifact masters could actually have such a childish side, what would they think? What's so funny? Mo Yin glared at Lung Ruoxue and said in an unpleasant tone. Ha! You guys do as you please. I'll go make some preparations. Lung Ruoxue laughed as she pulled the evildoer along with Lu Feng. The three of them left together. Late at night, Lung Ruoxue removed the qi from her bracelet and instructed the qi to cast an invisibility spell on the three of them. The three of them then headed towards Rumai's courtyard. Little girl, I didn't expect your beastie to have such ability. On the way, Lu Feng's eyes were fixed on Richard, his handsome face full of envy. Whoa. Why is this little fox's luck so good? To be able to obtain such a rare beast, heavens you're so unfair. He couldn't help but complain in his heart. Yes. Lung Ruoxue nodded her head calmly, and did not say anything else. However, her coldness did not affect Lu Feng's passion towards the judge. Don't look at me like that. Otherwise I'll bite you. The referee was frightened by Lu Feng's gaze and warned him with some fear. I really admire you. How about following me in the future? Lu Feng fearlessly tried to corner Lung Ruoxue again, but the referee did not even bother with him. Instead, he turned his head to the other side. Don't ignore me. I really admire you. This is the first time I've seen Beastie use the invisibility technique. Seeing that Yao was ignoring him, Lu Feng continued to pester him. Lu Feng, don't disturb my beastie. Lung Ruoxue saw that he was not paying any attention to her, and Lu Feng was pestering her endlessly, so she finally couldn't help but speak up. I'm stealing your girl. Can't you tell? Lu Feng said with a smile. I can tell, but you won't succeed. Lung Ruoxue replied nonchalantly. Are you that confident that your beastie won't be snatched away by me? Lu Feng said, not willing to admit defeat. If you don't believe me, you can try. If any of my beastie wants to follow you, I won't stop them. Lung Ruoxue said confidently. Please keep reading 0 in MYB 0x and 0 VEL. Come, you said it yourself. Don't you regret this? Lu Feng said, somewhat worried. Don't worry, I won't regret it. I always keep my word. Lung Ruoxue grinned. How could her beastie be taken away by others? Those cute beastie were more black-bellied than the other. Lu Feng was not their opponent at all. As they conversed, they had already arrived outside Yin Rumai's courtyard. Lu Feng, I'll leave the lock picking to you, Lung Ruoxue said to Lu Feng as she looked at the tightly shut door. Why? Do you think it's befitting of my status to ask me to do such a small thing? Lu Feng pretended to be unhappy. It's very fitting. The blacksmith should be more skilled at picking locks, so this matter has to be done by you. Lung Ruoxue laughed evilly. The main reason she brought Lu Feng here was to make him do this, otherwise, she wouldn't have let Lu Feng follow her. Lu Feng wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and was a little speechless. This was the first time he had heard that armament masters were good at picking locks. However, after thinking about it carefully, what this little girl said made sense. After all, in terms of familiarity with locks, there was really no one who could compare to a blacksmith. With this in mind, he resigned himself to his fate and took out his tools. He randomly tapped a few times on the keyhole, only to hear a ta. With a crisp sound, the lock was opened. How professional! Lung Ruoxue exclaimed in admiration. The locks in the Craftsman's Guild were all controlled by a password, so it was not an easy task to pry it open without alerting the master. However, to Lu Feng this was an extremely simple task. After all, he was the vice president of the Craftsman's Guild headquarters. Please. Lu Feng said somewhat embarrassedly. Could he say that a portion of these locks were made by him? The answer was no. After opening the door, Lung Ruoxue, the three humans, and the beast swaggered into the courtyard. Yin Rumai's residence was similar in both layout and size to their own. With Lu Feng leading the way, they easily found Yin Rumai's room. Chapter 1068. Creating Evidence 5. Just as they reached the door of the room, the three people and one beast heard voices coming from inside. Instantly, the three of them stopped in their tracks with great tacit understanding and began to eavesdrop. In the room, Yin Rumai was lying naked on the bed, and beside her was a similarly naked man. From his appearance, the man looked to be in his 30s. He was slightly chubby and looked like someone who had been pampered all year round. His strength was comparable to Yin Rumai's, and they were both divine kings. At this moment, the two of them were chatting. However, from their state, they must have just experienced an intense hand-to-hand battle. Don't you also want to get rid of Lu Feng? Why did you ask me to stop? Yin Rumai questioned, a little displeased. When she saw Lu Feng, that wretched girl, and the others today, she knew that the people she had sent had failed. However, she wasn't afraid that this matter would be exposed. It was precisely because she had the support of this man behind her, in addition to her position in the Armament Guild, that she believed that unless the president and the great elder personally spoke, no one would dare to touch her. I do want to get rid of him, but he has returned to Fiery City and knows that you sent people to kill them. If he continues to attack now, wouldn't that be courting death? Moreover, I've received news that that old man has also left the divine realm and come here. Thus, it's all the more reason why we can't act now. The man explained, his hand caressing Yin Rumai's body. What? The great elder is here too? Yin Rumai was startled, and a sense of uneasiness immediately welled up in her heart. That old man had always disliked her. If he really came here, then she really wouldn't be able to do anything to Lu Feng and that wretched girl. The most powerful person in the Armament Guild headquarters was the president, followed by the vice president. As for the Elders Guild, they usually did not manage anything. They only played a supervisory role in the operations of the Armament Guild headquarters. However, if any of their higher-ups were impeached by the Elders Guild for misconduct, even if the president appeared, he was afraid that he would not be able to protect them. As a result, even though she was the vice president of the Craftsman's Guild, Yin Rumai hated hearing the words, Elders Guild. And the one with the most power in the Council of Elders was naturally the Great Elder. That old man's status in the Craftsman's Guild headquarters was extraordinary, and even the guild leader had to give him some face. At the same time, he also had another identity, and that was Mo Yan's master. Therefore, although she dared to attack Lu Feng, she did not dare to touch a single hair on Mo Yan's head, even though she hated Mo Yan to the core. Yes. The man nodded. He did not welcome the old man, but he could not stop him. What do we do now? That old man was even more protective than Mo Yen, and was even more unreasonable. As long as he was certain of something, he didn't care if there was evidence. Don't be afraid, I think. He wouldn't stand up for Lu Feng. After all, he doesn't like Lu Feng. The man guessed. However, Lung Xiaoyu is also one of the people I want to kill. Won't he stand up for his grand disciple? Yin Rumei said uncertainly in her heart. When she heard that the first elder was here, she was truly a little afraid. In the Armament Guild headquarters, there was no one who wasn't afraid of that old man. Even the president had to go along with him. If the great elder is calculative about this matter, you can just insist that you only want to kill Lu Feng. The man suggested. Will this work? Yin Rumei was a little hesitant. That old man wasn't that easy to deceive. It would be a wonder if he believed her words. Do you have a better idea? The man asked impatiently. No, I didn't. Yin Rumei said, a little out of her wits. The first elder's arrival had disrupted all of her plans, and she didn't know how to deal with it. Then do as I say. The man said in a domineering manner. You have to help me. Yin Rumei hugged the man's arm and said coyly. Don't worry, of course I'll help you. The man promised. With that, he flipped over and pressed Yin Rumei under him again, hearing the intermittent moans coming from the room. And then looking at Lu Feng's dark face, Lung Ruoxue really didn't know how to comfort him. However, she was more interested to know what kind of outrageous things Lu Feng had done that even made Yin Rumei want to kill him. Of course, he also wanted to get rid of Yin Rumei. Could it be that love turned into hate? When she thought of this, she couldn't help but look at Lu Feng suggestively. You're not allowed to look at me like that. Lu Feng transmitted his voice angrily. Fuck. This adulterous couple really thought he was a bun. Did he look that easy to bully? Thinking of this, Lu Feng was filled with hatred. And the old man they were talking about, yes, they were right. The old man liked to find trouble with him, but there was a reason for that. Don't be sad. I won't let them have their way. Lung Ruoxue patted Lu Feng's head as if he was a puppy and consoled him. Please keep reading 0 in MYB 0x and 0 VEL. Come, I'm not sad. Lu Feng quibbled. Damn it, how was he sad? He was just angry. Didn't that adulterous couple think that he didn't have any backing? He would definitely make them regret it. Yes, you're not sad. You're just a little sad. Let's move. Lung Ruoxue laughed evilly. Let's move. Lu Feng said helplessly, AI. He was too lazy to defend himself because he knew that this little fox had already determined that he was sad and sad. You guys keep a lookout for me. I'll go in and get the evidence. Lung Ruoxue made the necessary arrangements. According to the original plan, the evildoer was supposed to enter with her. However, under the current circumstances, it was not appropriate for the evildoer to enter, because she instinctively didn't want the evildoer to see another woman's body. You're not allowed to go in, let him in. I'm going in. You guys keep watch. The evil demon and Lu Feng said in unison. After that, the two of them looked at each other and smiled. All right then. Just let Lu Feng go in by himself. Lung Ruoxue said helplessly. Yes. Lu Feng nodded. He wanted to go in and take revenge. Immediately, Lu Feng was about to push the door open and enter, but he was pulled back by the demon. What's wrong? Lu Feng didn't understand until the evildoer whispered a few words to him. The two men laughed evilly in tacit understanding before he stepped into Yin Rumei's room. After Lu Feng entered, Lung Ruoxue and the demon stood outside the room to keep a lookout for him. Looking at the evildoer's mysterious expression, Lung Ruoxue could not help but ask curiously, What did you say to Lu Feng? This is a secret between men. The demon's face was slightly red as he said in embarrassment. A secret between men, is it? Lung Ruoxue said with a half-smile. I'll just tell you. Seeing Shue'er's expression, the evildoer said fearfully before whispering into Lung Ruoxue's ear. You're really bad, but this is a good idea. Lung Ruoxue nodded her head in satisfaction, but she felt helpless in her heart. He's a monster. However, she liked it. To deal with this kind of woman, killing her is simply letting her off easy. The demon said disdainfully. Yes, we can't let her die so easily. Ruhua, I think it's too easy on her. Lung Ruoxue said regretfully. However, Ruhua had been killed by Yin Rumei, and it was too late for her to stop it when she found out. Otherwise, Ruhua wouldn't have died so easily. Let's count Ruhua's share on this woman. In any case, their master and disciple, the demon said matter-of-factly. Yes, yes. Lung Ruoxue nodded in agreement. At the same time, Lu Feng walked out of Yin Rumei's room. That's enough, let's retreat. Lu Feng suggested. Let's go. Lung Ruoxue and the demon said. Then, the 3 people and 1 beast quietly left Yin Rumei's courtyard. On the way back, Lung Ruoxue asked about the identity of the man beside Yin Rumei out of curiosity. He's the 2nd elder of the Blacksmith Guild's Elder Council. A rather annoying old man. But why didn't Mo Yin tell me that the old man had come to Fiery City? After Lu Feng explained the man's identity, he was a little puzzled. Maybe Mo Yin doesn't know that the old man is here. Lung Ruoxue mimicked Lu Feng's tone and guessed. No, I have to ask him. You guys go back and rest. After Lu Feng finished speaking, he hurriedly went to find Mo Yin. And Mo Yin indeed did not receive any news of the 2nd elder coming to Fiery City. Mo Yin's room. Mo Yin looked at Lu Feng in surprise and said, Are you sure? The 2nd elder really came? Of course I saw him. He's having an affair with Yin Rumei. If you go catch them in the act now, you should be able to catch them. Lu Feng teased. Why would I go catch an adulterer? It's none of my business what they do. Mo Yin said, a little speechless. Hee. If we catch them in the act, 2nd elder won't be able to speak up for Yin Rumei anymore. This is very beneficial to us. In addition, I heard from the 2nd elder that the 1st elder has also come. Lu Feng continued. Chapter 1069. Coaxing 1. Master is here too? Then you have to be careful. Mo Yin said with a hint of mockery. Humph. I'm not afraid. No matter how fierce that old man is, what can he do to me? Lu Feng said disapprovingly. Since he was young, he had never been afraid of that old man. On the contrary, he could always make that old man stomp his feet in anger. Hee. Lu Feng, master is an elder after all. You should give in to him. He's not young anymore. If you really anger him to the point that something bad happens, you'll regret it. Mo Yin advised helplessly. He didn't know why, but his master and Lu Feng never got along. As long as there was an opportunity, the two would fight like roosters. Ai. There was nothing he could do about this. Don't worry, that old man is in good health. Besides, have you ever heard of any emperor being angered to death? Lu Feng said calmly. Humph. If it wasn't for that old man always looking for trouble with him, he wouldn't be so bored as to take the initiative to provoke that old man. Ai. Mo Yin felt helpless when he saw that Lu Feng did not take the great elder seriously. What are you sighing for? The most important thing right now is to deal with Yin Rumei and 2nd elder, not that old man. Do you understand? Lu Feng reminded. Do you really want me to catch them in the act of adultery? I don't have that fetish. Mo Yin said, a little speechless. Even if you don't want to go, you can arrange for someone to find out about their affair. Hee. Lu Feng laughed evilly. He wanted to ruin the reputation of that adulterous couple and make them too ashamed to face anyone in the future. He also wanted to torture them well since they dared to have ideas about him. All right then. Mo Yin said after thinking for a while. He then called his subordinate and whispered something in his ear. After receiving the order, the subordinate went to carry out the mission. The next day, the news of Yin Rumei and the 2nd elder of the Craftsmen's Guild spread throughout the entire Fiery City. In Yin Rumei's room, when Yin Rumei received the news, she flew into a rage and smashed everything that could be thrown in the room. Even so, it was difficult to quell the anger in her heart. Damn it, who spread this news? If I find out, I'll cut him into 8 pieces. All right, have you had enough? What's the use of being angry now that things have come to this? The 2nd elder, who was sitting on the chair, said helplessly. He was also annoyed, but he wouldn't lose his mind like Yin Rumei. Now that everyone knows that we have such a relationship, it will be difficult for you to speak up for me in the future. Yin Rumei reminded him. This was what made her feel the most depressed. Then what do you want to do? Do you want me to send people to capture President Liu and the others so that you can vent your anger? The second elder said, somewhat annoyed. No matter how high that woman's status was, it could not change this fact. He had a deep understanding of this. They must be the ones who spread the news. Inrume said hatefully. Yesterday, President Liu had suddenly brought a group of people to look for her, and happened to discover her relationship with the second elder. Today, this matter had spread throughout the entire fiery city, so it was difficult for her not to pin the person who had leaked the news on President Liu and his group. It's impossible for them to have done it. After they discovered our matter yesterday, I've been sending people to keep an eye on them. They didn't have the chance to enter the blacksmith's guild at all, so how could they have leaked this matter out? The second elder was certain that President Liu and the others were not the ones who did this. Besides, President Liu and the others did not recognize him. That's Lu Feng, Leng Ruoxue, and the others. They must be the ones who spread the news. Inrume said after some thought. No one knows that I've come to Fiery City. Moreover, the people I sent to monitor them yesterday also didn't see them leave. The second elder said with a slight headache. This was really strange. His incident was widely publicized by his opponents, but he could not find any suspects. All the people who could have done this were under his surveillance. Therefore, they were all eliminated. Thinking of this, he could not help but feel a little depressed. Could it be Mo Yan? Inrume made wild guesses in her panic. Mo Yan doesn't even know I'm here. The second elder ruled out the possibility again. Then who could it be? Did a ghost really appear? Inrume roared, a little angry. If you can't figure it out, then don't think about it anymore. Anyway, it has already happened, and there's no point in us being angry. The second elder said in an open-minded manner. In contrast to Inrume and the second elder's anger, Leng Ruoxue and the others were calm. No matter how explosive the news was in the city, they were not affected in the slightest. In the garden, Leng Ruoxue and the others comfortably took out their own recliners and basked in the sun. Lu Feng, on the other hand, was constantly trying to please Ling. Unfortunately, Ling did not even bother to look at him. He was annoyed by his pestering and decided to wrap himself around his master's arm. No matter how thick-skinned Lu Feng was, he did not dare to pester his master. Please keep reading 0 in MYB 0x and 0 VEL. Come Ling, don't be like this. Can you look at me? Lu Feng said pitifully after he had maintained a certain distance from Leng Ruoxue. Ling. Lu Feng saw that Ling didn't respond and didn't give up. Feng De couldn't stand it anymore after he didn't get any response from Ling after calling him a few times. He patted Lu Feng's shoulder and said, Don't even think about Ling, he won't go with you. Why? How am I not as good as that little fox? I will treat it better than the little fox. Lu Feng said with confidence. Even so, it won't go with you. It's not interested in you. Feng De said honestly. Then what will make it interested in me? Lu Feng shamelessly asked. It's impossible in this life. Maybe you can try to fight for it in your next life. Feng De laughed evilly and teased. I won't give up so easily. Lu Feng said, full of fighting spirit. People always say that what can't be obtained is the best. Therefore, he must work hard to fight for it. Otherwise, he's afraid that he will regret it for the rest of his life. Do as you wish. Feng De saw how stubborn Lu Feng was. He helplessly shook his head and stopped talking. Poor Lu Feng. He really wouldn't turn back until he hit a wall. Just like that, Lu Feng continued to pester Ling for another 2 days. Not only did he not make any progress, he even angered Ling so much that Ling bit him ruthlessly. Only after that did Lu Feng become much more obedient. Chapter 1070. Coaxing 2. Looking at Lu Feng, who was lying on the bed pretending to be sick, Leng Ruoxue was both angry and amused. Although he was bitten by Ling, didn't she give him a pill? He even pretended to be sick. He was really getting more and more childish. Little fox, I'm weak all over, so I won't entertain you. Lu Feng pretended to be weak. Okay, just lie down. Don't worry about me. Leng Ruoxue said with a smile. Oh right. I forgot to tell you. An old man came just now and said he wanted to see you. Leng Ruoxue continued. Old man? What old man? Lu Feng asked, somewhat puzzled. That old man said he's the head elder of the Craftsmen's Guild. Lung Ruoxue laughed evilly. After waiting for 2 days, the heavyweight first elder had finally arrived. Hee. They could also begin to act. What? How did he get here so quickly? Lu Feng was shocked and immediately jumped up from the bed. Then he immediately put on his clothes and cleaned up. His speed was so fast that it made people speechless. What's wrong? You're not pretending to be sick anymore? Lung Ruoxue chuckled as she asked. I'm not pretending to be sick, I'm really sick, okay? Lu Feng said awkwardly. He couldn't let that old man know about this. Otherwise, that old man would definitely laugh at him to death. Good. You're really sick, but I think you've almost recovered, so come with me to see the great elder. Lung Ruoxue reminded. Then, let's go. Lu Feng said somewhat unwillingly. After that, the two of them came to the main hall. In the main hall, Mo Yen accompanied the great elder and sat on the main seat, while Yin Rume and the second elder sat below them. The 4 of them were chatting casually. As for Feng Da and the others, they were all gathered in the main hall, ready to watch the show. When they saw Lung Ruoxue and Lu Feng enter the main hall, the great elder and Mo Yen stopped their conversation and turned to look at the two. I heard you're sick? The first elder took a sip of tea and spoke indifferently. It's not your fault. Lu Feng said unhappily, but he was extremely depressed in his heart. Damn it, this old man still found out. Then who's it to do with? First elder raised his eyelids and asked in a calm voice. This is my own business. Lu Feng said in an unpleasant tone. Oh, the first elder acknowledged him and ignored Lu Feng. He turned his gaze to the second elder and Yin Rume. However, the first elder only stared at the second elder and Yin Rume without saying anything. However, his probing gaze made the two of them shudder. After sizing him up for a long time, the great elder said with a faint smile. I just entered Fiery City and heard about the good things between the two of you. Second elder, it's not that I want to criticize you, but after such a thing happened, you should at least give Vice President Yin an explanation. After all, she's a woman. If her reputation is damaged, it'll be difficult for her to find a good man in the future. Great elder, please don't spread rumors. That's just a rumor. The second elder quickly denied it, but in his heart he hated the first elder to death. Fuck, he knew that this old man was up to no good. As a matter of fact, he had touched on a sore spot. There's a saying that there's no smoke without fire. If there was really no trace of it, this matter would not have been spread so widely. As the higher-ups of the Craftsmen's Guild, your words and actions are very important, and you should set an example for the people below. So this matter must be handled well. Otherwise, what would our Craftsmen's Guild be? The first elder said in an unusually serious manner. First elder, don't worry. I will find the person who spread the news and not let his evil plan succeed. The second elder quickly promised. I'm not talking about that. Second elder, you've misunderstood. The first elder said with a faint smile. Then what does grand elder mean? The second elder was a little puzzled. What was this old man up to? Can't you make yourself clear? He couldn't help but complain in his heart. Please keep reading 0 and MYB 0x and 0 VEL. Come, for something like this to happen, no matter who did it, the impact has already been made. So, let's not talk about whether you can find the person who spread the news. Even if you can find him, what can you do? In fact, what you should do now is to give Vice President Yin a title. After all, your relationship can't be hidden anymore. The first elder kindly reminded. This won't do. The second elder hurriedly refused. Fuck, if he really brought Yin Rume home, that tigress at home would definitely cause a ruckus. You said no. The first elder narrowed his eyes and said in a slightly displeased manner. First elder, you should be aware of my family's situation. Vice Guild Leader Yin isn't suitable to marry into my family. The second elder said helplessly. Do you want to sleep with Vice President Yin for free? I'm telling you, you can't do that. With our Vice President Yin's position in the Armament Guild headquarters, it's more than enough to marry you. Even if she can't be the first wife, at least give her the title of a concubine. I won't agree to such an unclear request. The great elder was so angry that he blew at his beard and glared at him. The second elder was depressed. It looked like this old man was eager to stir up trouble. If he really got involved in this matter, he was afraid that he would not be able to deal with the aftermath. However, Rume, who didn't dare to make a sound, was even more depressed than the second elder. She was the dignified vice president of the Armament Guild headquarters. What kind of man couldn't she have? Could it be that she could only be a concubine to a rotten old man? However, she didn't dare to say this in front of the great elder, so she could only swallow her anger and sulk. When Lung Ruoxia heard first elder's words, she almost burst out laughing. This old man is quite cute. He actually thought of making Rume become the second elder's concubine. This idea was really too original. However, Rume definitely wouldn't accept this idea. At the thought of this, Lung Ruoxia's beautiful eyes could not help but pace back and forth between Rume and second elder. She saw with her own eyes how their expressions changed like a color palette. Finally, she fixed her gaze on first elder. From his appearance, this old man looked to be around 40 years old. He was very handsome, and his half-squinted eyes were full of light. He often had a smile on his face, giving off an amiable feeling. However, Lung Ruoxia believed that this old man was definitely a two-faced person. Otherwise, second elder and Rume wouldn't have been so depressed that they wanted to bang their heads against the wall just because of a few words from him. Chapter 1071. Coaxing 3. It's settled like this. It's better to choose a day than the present. Today you will do the marriage. I'll officiate your wedding. First elder didn't care whether second elder and Rume agreed or not, and directly made the final decision. Great elder, how could this matter be decided so rashly? The second elder said in a last-ditch struggle. Sloppy? I am doing this for your own good. Why don't you guys appreciate it? The great elder sighed, his handsome face filled with disappointment. Master, I think the second elder and vice president are probably feeling shy. Actually, they're definitely willing. Emoyen said with a smirk. Master was really too bad. He actually thought of such a trick. The older the ginger, the spicier it was indeed. This morning, as soon as his master had arrived in Yanhua City, he had immediately reported everything that had happened recently to his master. Naturally, his master had been extremely angry after hearing this, so he had immediately gone to the little girl's residence, and even called the second elder and Rume over. It was clear that he wanted to settle this matter here, so as her disciple, he naturally had to cooperate. Shy? This isn't the second elder's first time getting married, and Vice President isn't a virgin anymore, so what's there to be shy about? The first elder teased with a smile. Grand elder, I don't agree with this. Suddenly, Rume's voice entered everyone's ears. You don't agree? First elder shot a warning look at Rume and spoke in a cold tone. Of course I don't agree. I'm the Armament Guild's vice president. How can I be someone else's concubine? Rume suppressed the fear in her heart and shouted. After such a scandal, what do you want to do instead of being a concubine? A bed-warming servant? First elder pretended to be confused and then added. It's not impossible to be a bed-warming servant girl. Since this is your wish, I'll fulfill it. From now on, you're second elder's bed-warming servant girl. I'm the vice president of the Armament Guild headquarters. Rume warned through gritted teeth. She almost vomited blood from anger at this old man who pretended to be crazy. It wasn't nice for the vice president to be a bed-warming servant. On behalf of the Craftsmen's Guild, I will demote you to an ordinary craftsman. This way, you can have no more worries. The first elder muttered to himself for a moment before continuing. Great elder, you can't do that. I didn't do anything wrong. How can you demote me? Rume shouted angrily. Although she had always been afraid of the great elder, this was a matter of great importance that concerned her status, so she had to fight for justice. As for the great elder, he closed his eyes as if he hadn't heard Rume's words. Who said you didn't make any mistakes? You did send people to kill us. Don't you know what kind of crime it is to hunt down your colleagues? At this moment, Lu Fengyan spoke in a calm and casual manner. What evidence do you have? Don't talk nonsense without evidence. In Rumai's attitude was very unyielding, as if she was very confident. Of course I have evidence. I have witnesses and physical evidence. Lu Feng said with a smirk. Since you have evidence, then show it to me. If you can I will ask the great elder to uphold justice. In Rumai said confidently. You should recognize these people, right? Lu Feng took out an exquisite and small cage from his ring, and waved it in front of In Rumai's eyes. I don't know him. I don't just recognize any Tom, Dick or Harry. In Rumai said disdainfully. Rumai, how can you be so cruel? As the saying goes, one night as husband and wife means 100 days of love. We've spent at least a few nights together, which is at least enough for a year. You can't be so heartless. In the cage, the leader of the men in black said with a sad face. What are you talking about? I don't even know you. In Rumai's beautiful face was flushed red. She was clearly very angry. Rumai, I know that you have a mole on your left thigh, one on your chest, and the leader of the black-robed men wanted to spill everything he knew. But he was interrupted by In Rumai. Shut up. What nonsense are you talking about? In Rumai was furious. If this man wasn't still locked up in the cage, she would have chopped him into pieces. He actually dared to ruin her reputation. He really didn't know what was good for him. I'm telling the truth. The leader of the men in black said in an extremely aggrieved manner. I can prove that boss is telling the truth. At this time, another black-clothed person in the cage shouted. Can you prove it? How do you know what's on Vice President In? Lu Feng asked curiously. Please keep reading 0 in MYB 0xn 0VEL. Calm because I have an affair with her too. The man said bravely. Damn it, don't talk nonsense. I don't even know you. In Rumai's heart was filled with anger, and she was so angry that she stepped forward to snatch the cage from Lu Feng's hands. However, how could Lu Feng let her do as she wished? He dodged lightly and dodged In Rumai's snatching. Are you planning to silence me? Lu Feng asked with a faint smile. Humph. I won't allow them to talk nonsense here. In Rumai's anger shot up to the top of her head. At this moment, she was so angry that smoke was coming out of her 7 orifices, and her whole body was trembling. I'm not talking nonsense. I still have the love token you gave me. After the man finished speaking, he took out a pink woman's undergarments from his arms. There was a small May character at the hem of the clothes. I also have one. The leader of the men in black also took out an identical, translucent, pink object and shook it in front of In Rumai's eyes. When the rest of the men in black saw this, they also shyly took out the same thing from their clothes. It was obvious that these were love tokens that In Rumai had given them. Why do you all have it? Lu Feng's eyes widened as he spoke in disbelief. We all had improper relationships with her. The dozen or so men in black said in embarrassment. After they finished speaking, they lowered their heads in unison. In the eyes of the crowd, they were clearly embarrassed. Hee. I really didn't expect Vice Guild leader In to be so capable. Lu Feng laughed very happily, but in his heart he couldn't help but sigh. Seeing In Rumai so angry that she was about to explode, he was overjoyed. Chapter 1072, Coaxing 4. They're framing me. I don't even know them, let alone have any relationship with them. In Rumai argued, and she kept telling herself to stay calm. He had to stay calm. Although these people had her personal belongings, no one could do anything to her as long as she didn't admit it. Rumai, you're so cruel. You've eaten us clean and you're not going to admit it? If we didn't have such a relationship, would I have agreed to kill them on impulse? Although I know that one of the people you want me to kill is the vice president of the Armament Guild headquarters, His Excellency Lu Feng, but for you I still agreed. Although we have failed, you can't be so heartless. The leader of the men in black said in an excellent voice. In fact, these words were taught to him by Lu Feng. Although he was extremely nervous and afraid now, His Excellency Lu Feng had said that if he didn't say this, he would immediately send them to hell, woo-woo. And that devilish man had also warned him. Rumai, you can't do this to us. The other men in black also agreed in unison. You guys. In Rumai was so angry that she couldn't speak. Second elder, you should have received Vice President Yin's love token, right? Lu Feng looked at the second elder and asked with a smile. No, I didn't. The second elder was so angry that his chest heaved up and down. However, with the first elder present, he did not dare to vent his anger. Then, you should be very clear about the location of the mole on Vice President Yin's body, right? Lu Feng asked with a smile. I don't know. He didn't want to mention this matter at all, because he had never dreamed that Yin Rumei would be such a promiscuous woman. In order to achieve her own goals, she didn't hesitate to do such things with these people who licked blood on the edge of their blades. Just thinking about it made him feel dirty. At this moment, he really regretted it to death. Don't tell me you guys always turn off the lights when you do things. Lu Feng guessed. No, there's nothing going on between Vice President Yin and me. Don't listen to the nonsense that others are spouting. The second elder started to deny his relationship with Yin Rumei. How could this be? Didn't someone see it with their own eyes? Second elder, you're not being fair. You're not going to admit it after eating it clean. This isn't what a real man should do. Lu Feng criticized with some dissatisfaction. Second elder, have you forgotten what you told me? Do you want me to repeat it in front of everyone? Yin Rumei was also a little angry at second elder's words, so she blurted them out without thinking. I didn't say anything to you, don't spout nonsense. The second elder hurriedly said, and he kept giving Yin Rumei meaningful looks. Unfortunately, the furious Yin Rumei didn't care at all. You dare to say you didn't say anything? You dare to say that you didn't participate in the killing of Lu Feng? You dare say? Yin Rumei's anger seeped into her heart, and she threw away almost all of their plans. You stupid woman, shut up. I'm not familiar with you, don't frame me. Seeing this, the second elder hurriedly drew a clear line between them. At this moment, he hated Yin Rumei, this woman who failed to accomplish anything but was good at causing trouble, to death. You're so heartless, how dare you say we're not close? You haven't gotten out of my bed these past few days, and you've made so many promises to me. Do you want to go back on your word? Yin Rumei said through gritted teeth. You crazy woman. You've remembered the wrong person. Don't blame it on me. The second elder's chubby face was red as he roared in displeasure. You remembered the wrong person? Then what is this? After Yin Rumei finished speaking, she quickly rushed to the second elder's side and took out a pink female object from his chest. That object was exactly the same as the one the dozen or so black-clothed men had shown them. I picked this up. The second elder said shamelessly. His words caused Fengda and the others to burst into laughter. Ha! I didn't think that the Armament Guild's second elder would have the hobby of picking up women's personal belongings. Fengda laughed and mocked. I'm happy, what does it have to do with you? The second elder roared. It's none of my business. I'm just expressing my opinion. You don't have to mind it. Fengda said with a smile. Lung Ruoxue saw that her plan had just begun, and Yin Rumei and second elder were already in a dogfight. She didn't know what to say about their extreme cooperation. However, this also proved that an alliance maintained by improper relationships wouldn't last long. At the thought of this, Lung Ruoxue smiled and said, Grand Elder, now that the matter is clear, do you still need any other evidence? No need. The first elder took a sip of tea and looked at Lung Ruoxue with a profound look before he spoke softly. Great Elder. Yin Rumei and the second elder said in unison. They had also realized what they had just said. Damn it, they actually coaxed each other. However, they both pushed the blame to each other and stared at each other. Please keep reading 0 in MYB 0x and 0 VEL. Come. Chapter 1073. The bugs in the divinity are really powerful. 1. If you have something to say, then say it. The first elder raised his eyes and said in an extremely cold tone, Great Elder, we were set up. Yin Rumei and the second elder said in unison, Oh really? I wonder who set you up. The great elder chuckled as he looked at the two men who were struggling at death's door. He really didn't expect that these two people could be shameless to this extent. They could even blame the words that came out of their own mouths on others. This was really the case of the most despicable person is invincible. It's them. Yin Rumei pointed at Lung Ruoxue and the others. Lu Feng was naturally one of the people she was pointing at. Vice President Yin, you're really shameless to a certain extent. I just realized today that Ruhua is nothing compared to you. Leng Ruoxua chuckled. Yin Rumai's ability to bite back had truly reached the peak of perfection, leaving others in the dust. That's for sure. Although it's said that a great teacher produces a great disciple, Ruhua obviously can't compare to her master. He wondered how our Yuhua was doing. Snatching a man from your own master. I'm sure you won't have a good end. Lu Feng agreed indifferently. Of course they won't have a good ending. With Yin Rumai's personality, Ruhua and Yao Yuan would have died long ago. Leng Ruoxua said. So we're going to be unlucky? Lu Feng said with a face full of fear. Yup. You have to be careful and don't be alone. Otherwise, Vice President Yin will definitely send people to kill you. Leng Ruoxua reminded him out of the kindness of her heart. Her beautiful face was filled with a gloating smile. Little fox, you can't just leave me to die. Lu Feng's eyes were filled with tears as he pitifully pleaded. I can't even save myself. Don't forget that I'm also Vice President Yin's target. Leng Ruoxua said with a helpless look. Are we just going to wait for death? Lu Feng's handsome face had a trace of depression as he said in a sullen voice. No, I believe the Great Elder will uphold justice for us. Leng Ruoxua said calmly. Are you sure? Lu Feng said with a doubtful tone. Yes, everyone says that the Armament Guild headquarters Great Elder is the most just. So he definitely won't just stand by and watch us, the vulnerable group, be bullied by evil forces. Leng Ruoxua said, trying to please him. Cough cough. Leng Ruoxia's words, which were suspected of flattery, caused the First Elder, who was drinking tea, to spit it out. The Great Elder was also helpless against their tacit cooperation. First Elder looked at Leng Ruoxua helplessly and thought to himself, is this little girl really the one that my disciple has mentioned to me? Why was it different from what his disciple had said? However, this little girl is much more interesting than my disciple and those two stinky brats, hee. It's rare to meet a little girl who's pleasing to the eye, so we'll just cooperate with her. Little girl, if you have any grievances, just say it. For the sake of my grand disciple, I'll help you. However, what you say must be the truth and not lie to me. The First Elder said in an extremely cautious manner. First Elder, don't worry. I'm a good child. I won't lie to the elderly. Leng Ruoxua promised with a smile. Actually, what I want to say is that the words came from Vice President Yin's mouth, so why is it that she and Second Elder are saying that we're framing them? It doesn't seem like we're the ones who said that. Following that, Leng Ruoxua laid out the facts that everyone already knew on the table. Vice President Yin, what do you have to say about this? The First Elder narrowed his eyes and looked at Yin Rumei. First Elder, I'm innocent. Yin Rumei had nothing to say and could only plead innocence. How are you innocent? You did say those words yourself. Are you going to say that we all heard it wrong? The First Elder asked curiously. I was so angry with Second Elder that my mind became muddled. That's why I spoke nonsense. Those words can't be taken as true. Yin Rumai's mind whirred as she tried to quibble. Yup. It's all my fault for angering Rumei AI. Rumei, you have to change your temper. You can't just talk nonsense when you're angry. The Second Elder chimed in upon seeing this. The way he addressed Yin Rumei had also changed from crazy woman to an even more affectionate Rumei. You guys are really following the husband's lead. Since that's the case, let's find a time to hold your wedding. The First Elder said with a smile. He did not mention anything about the previous matter and the two of them quibbling. Many thanks, Great Elder. The Second Elder braced himself and said. If he refused now, the Great Elder might not agree. However, if his marriage with Yin Rumei could dispel the Great Elder's doubts, he could only follow the Great Elder's wishes. Please keep reading 0 and MYB0X and 0VEL. Where's Vice President Yin? Do you have any objections? The First Elder asked in a democratic way. No, I didn't. Yin Rumei said gloomily. Although she really wanted to object, she didn't dare to disobey First Elder's wishes now. Otherwise, if First Elder made an issue out of her previous words, no one would be able to protect her. If that's the case, then your marriage will be set for tomorrow. Mo Yen. Help the second elder and Vice President Yin prepare. We must let our armament guild's vice president get married in a grand manner. Furthermore, don't forget to inform all the armament masters in Fiery City to attend the wedding. The great elder was very thoughtful, and his orders did not allow anyone to refuse. Master, if the blacksmiths ask about Vice President Yin's name, what should I say? Mo Yen said awkwardly. Actually, what he wanted to ask was whether Yin Rume had married him as a concubine, or as a bed-warming servant. However, he knew that Yin Rume wouldn't be happy with either of the two titles. You can just tell the truth. I believe the artifact masters will understand. Who asked the second elder to have a publicly acknowledged tigress in his house? The first elder said with some sympathy. All right, master, I'll go prepare for this. Mo Yen then left the main hall. Vice President Yin, second elder, you two can stay here for today. I'm also staying here, hee. I have to keep a close eye on you too, in case you can't stand the loneliness before the wedding. Also, don't meet each other again before the wedding, so as not to ruin the feng shui. After Mo Yen left, the first elder said this to the second elder and Yin Rume. By saying this, he had imprisoned the two of them separately. Chapter 1074. The bugs in the divinity are so powerful too. Yes. Yin Rume and the second elder answered gloomily. Little girl, I'm going to borrow your place for 2 days. The first elder looked at Lung Ruoxia and smiled. There's no problem. However, I have a lot of subordinates, so I only have 1 empty room left. It's only enough for you. As for second elder and Vice President Yin, I'm afraid they'll have to stay in the servants' room. Lung Ruoxia laughed evilly. Oh, it doesn't matter. They won't be staying here for long anyway, so it doesn't matter where they stay. The first elder chuckled. He was even more satisfied with Lung Ruoxia. What a smart little girl. He liked her. First elder, how can we stay in the servants' room? When the second elder heard that he had to stay in the servants' room, he immediately began to complain. If you don't want to stay, do you want me to stay there? The first elder said with a smile that was not a smile. I don't dare. What I mean is that we can ask them to give 2 rooms to Vice President Yin and me. The second elder said matter-of-factly. Oh, then you can talk to that girl yourself. First elder nodded. Yes, immediately clear out 2 rooms for Vice Guild Leader Yin and me. The second elder nodded and ordered Lung Ruoxia arrogantly. Unfortunately, Lung Ruoxia couldn't even be bothered to look at him, let alone acknowledge him. Second elder, we are enemies. What reason do you think we have to give you a room? Fonda asked with a smile. Perhaps he was too ignorant. He thought he had seen many humans, but this was the first time he had seen people like second elder and Yin Rume. They were truly strange. Just because I'm the Armament Guild's second elder, isn't this reason enough? The second elder said angrily. What does that have to do with us? Fonda was a little speechless. They weren't from the Armament Guild headquarters, so who would care who you were? The place you're living in now belongs to the Craftsmen's Guild. You dare to disobey my orders? The second elder roared in anger. Second elder, have you overindulged in your desires? Are you still sleeping? Look carefully, this place belongs to my young miss. Do you want me to show you the house deed? Although this courtyard belonged to the Craftsmen's Guild, Mo Yen had already transferred it to his miss name as compensation for Lung Xiaoyu's house being occupied. You. The second elder was so angry at Fonda that his face turned red and his neck became thick. He stammered for a long time, but he couldn't even say a complete sentence. Second elder, we're guests, so we have to listen to the host's arrangements. Don't be so calculative. You're only staying for 1 night anyway. The first elder indifferently advised. All right then. Find me the best servant's room. I want the cleanest one. Seeing that the first elder had spoken, the second elder naturally did not dare to continue arguing over this matter, so he could only take a step back and settle for the second best. I'm sorry, second elder. There's only 1 servant's room left. May I know which one of you or Vice President Yin will be staying there? At this time, the butler who had been hiding in the corner couldn't help but speak. What? And who are you? What? The second elder was furious and immediately questioned him. I'm the butler. I'm in charge of the guests' accommodation. The butler said politely, where do you want me and Vice President Yin to stay? The second elder shouted with wide eyes. One of you can stay in the servants' room, while the other can only stay in the utility room. Of course, you can also set up a tent in the courtyard. The butler gave them multiple choices, allowing the second elder and Vice President Yin to decide. Set up a tent for me. I'd rather live in the courtyard. The second elder said after some thought. Sure, but you have to prepare your own tent. We're not providing it. The butler continued. Good. I'll prepare my own. The second elder's heart was burning with anger. However, in front of the great elder, he didn't dare to go too far. In addition to the previous incident, he always felt that the great elder had something on him, so he was even more careful in his words and actions. What about Vice President Yin? The butler asked again. Please keep reading 0 and MYB 0X and 0VEL. I'll stay in the tent too. Yin Rume said, suppressing her anger. Alright then please hand over your tents to me. I'll send someone to set them up for you. The butler said with a smile. Here you go. The two of them took out their tents from their rings and threw them to the butler angrily. The butler took the tent and was about to leave this troublesome place, but he was stopped by someone. Wait, the first elder said indifferently. Do you have any instructions for me? The head butler said respectfully. His attitude towards the first elder was completely different from how he had treated the second elder and Yin Rume. Butler, move their tents further away from each other. Their wedding is tomorrow, so don't let them see each other before the wedding. The grand elder instructed. Yes. The butler replied and left with the tent. Not long after, the butler returned to the main hall and said to the second elder and Yin Rume, your tents have been set up. Since that's the case, let's go take a look at the second elder and Vice President Yin's new residence. The first elder said excitedly. Then, he ordered the butler to lead the way and left the main hall first. Of course, he also took the second elder and Yin Rume away with him. Miss, should we go? Fengda said, eager to try. If you want to go, then go. She was tired and wanted to go back to rest. Although she didn't manage to deal with Yin Rume and second elder as she had hoped, she believed that the good show was yet to come. With that, Lung Ruoxua pulled the evildoer back to their room. However, she was stopped by Lu Feng. Little fox, aren't you depressed? Lu Feng said unhappily. That damn old man. There was clear evidence, but he still didn't immediately deal with that adulterous couple. He was really infuriated. What's there to be depressed about? Don't you think it's interesting? It's Yin Rume's big day tomorrow, so we still have to show our support. Have an early rest. Lung Ruoxua consoled. Chapter 1075. The bugs in the divinity are really powerful. 3. You still want to support her? She's really beautiful. Lu Feng said in disdain. You can think of it as watching the fun. Maybe tomorrow's wedding will be very lively. Lung Ruoxua said. With that old man's black-bellied personality, the wedding tomorrow would be very interesting. She was looking forward to it. With that, Lung Ruoxua held onto the evildoer's arm and left. Fengda and the rest naturally did not stay any longer. At once, Lu Feng was the only one left in the main hall. Lu Feng was stunned for a moment. Then he went to find the great elder. The next day, it was the day of Yin Rume's wedding. Lung Ruoxua and the others woke up early. In the main hall, the great elder was already seated, and beside him was Mo Yen, who had a strange expression on his face. When he saw Lung Ruoxua and the others, Mo Yen hurriedly greeted them. Little girl, you've come. Yes, today is Yin Rume's big day. How can we miss it? Lung Ruoxua laughed evilly. Oh right, where's the newbie? Lung Ruoxua couldn't help but ask curiously when she didn't see second elder and Yin Rume. They are still preparing. Mo Yen said with a chuckle. Little girl, there seem to be a lot of bugs in your yard. At this moment, the first elder, who had been staring at Lung Ruoxua, suddenly spoke. Where there are flowers and plants, there will naturally be snakes, insects, rats, and ants. Isn't this very normal? Even though Lung Ruoxua did not know why the first elder would ask such a question, She still answered very carefully. And that's true. It seems like we can only blame second elder and Rume for being unlucky. I told them not to meet before marriage, but they didn't listen. Now it's a tragedy. The great elder sighed, his face full of regret. What happened to them? Lung Ruoxua asked curiously. They were bitten by bugs yesterday. Emoyin replied. Furthermore, he could tell from Lung Ruoxia's expression that she was not faking it. It seemed like she really did not know. Oh, it's not a big deal to be bitten by a bug. It's common to sleep in the wild. Lung Ruoxua replied nonchalantly. She wasn't the one who was bitten anyway, so she didn't care at all. It's not just one bite, but a few. Emoyin held back his laughter and said hee. Since this little girl didn't know, he didn't want to reveal the truth for now. Anyway, they would naturally see it when the wedding was official. They're all god kings. They won't die even if they get bitten a few times. What's the matter? Lung Ruoxua chuckled. Exactly. It's fine to be bitten by a few bugs. Fonda also quickly agreed. Yes, they're still alive and well. Emoyin also nodded in agreement. At this moment, the butler walked in from outside the hall and reported, Sir Emoyin, President Liu sent someone to say that everything is ready, and the guests are almost all here. Oh, then let's go. Emoyin stood up and said with a smile. The wedding venue was arranged to be at Rumai's residence, and the bridal chamber was naturally Rumai's own. When Lung Ruoxua and the others arrived at the wedding venue, Rumai's courtyard was already packed with people. For such a grand occasion. Could it be that all the blacksmiths of Fiery City had come? Lung Ruoxua thought to herself, look at the wedding scene today. Are we really just going to marry a servant girl to warm my bed? However, she was rather impressed by the great elder's thinking. Second elder had taken in a bed-warming servant girl, and had already arranged it so wantonly. She wondered what that famous tigress in second elder's house would think if she found out. Moreover, it was her first time knowing that a bed-warming servant could also have a wedding. Please keep reading 0 in MYB 0x and 0VEL. She just didn't know how different this wedding would be from what she knew. Miss Lung, what a coincidence. I didn't expect to see you here. At this moment, a young man came forward to greet Lung Ruoxua. You haven't left Fiery City yet? Lung Ruoxua looked at the man in front of her and asked in surprise. This man was the one they had met at the city gates. Including today, this should be the third time they had met. Not yet, but we'll be leaving soon. The man explained with a smile. Oh, Lung Ruoxua nodded. When does Miss Lung plan to leave? The man asked again. I don't know. Maybe you'll be staying here in the future, or I might leave at any time. Lung Ruoxua replied perfunctorily, because she could already feel the sour smell around her. Miss Lung, if you have nowhere to go after leaving Fiery City, you can come to my place as a guest. I will definitely treat you well. The man said enthusiastically. Thank you, but I'm afraid we'll have to stay here for a while. Lung Ruoxua declined. It's all right. Whenever Miss Lung and the others are free, I'll welcome you at any time. This is my token. I'll give it to Miss Lung. After the man finished speaking, he retrieved a black token from his ring and passed it to Lung Ruoxua. Lung Ruoxua took the sign and saw that on the front of the sign was a soaring eagle with its wings spread out. On the back was the word Qi, and on the lower right corner was the small word Rue. I didn't expect young master to be from the Qi clan. Lung Ruoxua asked in surprise. Although she had guessed that this man's identity was not simple, she did not expect him to be from the Qi family, one of the 8 great divine regions. It seemed like they had not offended all of the 8 great divine regions. Hee. My family is my family and I am me. Miss Lung, you want to despise me as a friend just because of my family, right? In fact, with his status, it was not easy to make true friends, so he was afraid that Lung Ruoxua would reject him. Of course I won tea. Lung Ruoxua was very calm. In fact, she really wanted to say that they could not be considered friends. Just as the two of them were talking in low voices, Qi Rue saw a woman walking in from the corner of his eye. He couldn't help but warn. Miss Lung, something's going to happen. Don't get too close to the hall later. What's wrong? Lung Ruoxua followed Qi Rue's gaze, and saw a 30-year-old woman who was only at the god tier. She was walking into the courtyard with a righteous aura, and there was a hint of hostility on her body. Behind her were more than a dozen tall, strong and powerful men. These men were all god kings, and from their posture, they didn't look like they were here to attend a wedding. They were more like here to cause trouble. Chapter 1076. The bugs in the divinity are so powerful for. That woman is the wife of the Armament Guild's second elder. She's from the Ning family. QiuQiu explained in a low voice. Although he had never seen the woman before, he had been taught by his family since he was young. Therefore, he was familiar with the family members of some of the big shots in the divine world. Oh, then there's going to be a show to watch. Lung Ruoxia said excitedly, hee. The second elder's real wife had arrived so quickly. Miss Lung, that woman is not to be trifled with. I'm really afraid that we didn't get to see the show and instead got into trouble. Moreover, that woman will definitely. QiuQiu made a gesture of slitting his throat. Don't tell me she even dared to kill the head elder of the Craftsmen's Guild? Is the Ning clan already able to hide the sky with one hand in the divine realm? Lung Ruoxia asked out of curiosity. She doesn't dare to kill the great elder. I'm referring to those who don't have any backing. I'm afraid those people are going to be in trouble. QiuQiu said regretfully. Among the people who came today, there were quite a few blacksmiths. And they were destined to become that woman's tools to vent her anger. You underestimate the great elder too much. You won't just watch that woman kill all the craftsmen here. What's more, no matter how powerful the Ning family is, I'm afraid they're not willing to be enemies with the Craftsmen's Association. Lung Ruoxia was not worried at all. After all, the law could not punish the majority. Even if that woman wanted to vent her anger, she would not dare to kill the weapon master. It seems that I was too nervous. However, that woman's notoriety in the divine realm is very well known. Anyone who has offended her will not have a good end. QiuQiu said fearfully. Would the Ning family allow her to mess around? Lung Ruoxia raised her brows and asked indifferently. She's Master Ning's most beloved daughter, and her position in the Ning family is definitely second only to one person, and above everyone else. Except for Master Ning, no one dares to control her. QiuQiu explained. If it wasn't for the old man of the Ning family, this woman wouldn't have dared to be so lawless. Oh, after listening to QiuQiu's words, Lung Ruoxia couldn't help but secretly pay attention to this woman. Not long after, the wedding officially began. Lung Ruoxia looked at the entrance of the courtyard and saw two round balls being supported by someone as they slowly walked in. She widened her beautiful eyes in disbelief. What was going on? Wasn't it the second elder and Rumai's wedding today? Who were these two spherical objects? Little girl, these two are the second elder and Rumai. Emoyin walked to Lung Ruoxia's side and said with a faint smile. Seeing the two of them like this, he felt particularly comfortable. Moreover, compared to this morning, these two seemed to be even rounder. Hee. It was really satisfying. Could it be that they gave up on themselves and ate too much? But it's impossible for them to get this fat in one night, right? Lung Ruoxia was still in a state of disbelief over what she had just seen. That's not fat, it's swollen. Didn't I tell you that they were bitten by bugs last night? Emoyin reminded. The worms of the divine realm are really powerful. Lung Ruoxia was a little speechless. She never thought that the bugs from the god realm would have such great power. Should she catch a few to raise? In the future, if anyone provoked her, she would release the bugs she raised to bite. Hee. She couldn't help but think to herself wickedly. Yup. However, I didn't expect that there would be so many bugs in the city. It seems that the city's hygiene should be properly cleaned. Emoyin chuckled and teased. I'm afraid it has nothing to do with hygiene. It's character. Otherwise, why didn't those bugs bite anyone? Lung Ruoxia said disapprovingly. Yes, you're right, little girl. Emoyin thought for a moment, and said with a smile. As the two of them bantered, the second elder and Rumai entered the wedding hall that had already been set up. At this moment, the great elder was sitting high up in the main seat, acting as their elder and the marriage officiant and witness. President Lu was the host of the wedding. As for the Ning family's young lady, the second elder's wife, who had just arrived at the wedding scene, she was hidden in the crowd and had not made any movements. However, according to Lung Ruoxia's guess, that woman probably couldn't hold it in for much longer. The reason why she didn't make a move now was probably because she was waiting for a good opportunity. Everyone, please calm down. I now announce the official start of the second elder and Her Excellency Rumai's wedding. President Lu said loudly, trembling with fear. The cold sweat in his heart was pouring down. However, he also knew that there was no way out of this situation. He had also joined Mo Yan's pirate ship, so he had to be the host. As President Lu finished speaking, thunderous applause rang out. Everyone be quiet. Now the first thing to do is the wedding ceremony. Since the elders of both men and women are not able to attend, we will be represented by our headquarters Great Elder. Second Elder, Lady Rumei, you may now bow to the Grand Elder. President Lu braced himself and said, please keep reading 0 and MYB 0X and 0 VEL. Com. Chapter 1077. Killing with a Borrowed Knife 1. Bow. When the two round balls heard that, their lungs almost exploded. Fuck. They were in such a state. Yet he still wanted them to bow to the Great Elder. However, no matter how unwilling they were, they didn't dare to refuse. The two balls held each other's hands and bent down slightly to bow. However, because their center of gravity was too forward, the two of them rolled directly to the floor. The Great Elder looked at the two balls that rolled to his feet and said with satisfaction, Second Elder, Vice President Yin, you're really too polite. There's no need for such a big bow, haha. When the surrounding crowd saw the Great Elder on the main seat lying with his eyes open, they couldn't help but curse. He fell down okay? He didn't want to give you such a big bow. However, they could also see that the Great Elder was deliberately making things difficult for these two people. Most of the guests who had come to attend the wedding today had seen Yin Rumei before, even if they had never seen the second elder before. As such, they were quite curious about Yin Rumei's current figure. However, many people didn't dare to ask. Only after a few people with more background found out the reason for the second elder, and Yin Rumei's current appearance did the news slowly spread among the guests. Mo Yen arranged for the servants to accompany the two newcomers and help the second elder and Yin Rumei, who were lying on the ground and unable to get up because they still had to bow to the Great Elder. According to the customs of the immortal realm, the elders in the family, the marriage officiant, and the officiant all had to bow to show their gratitude. Therefore, after the two of them were helped up, they would fall down every time they bowed. Their comical behavior made the guests sneer secretly, but they didn't dare to laugh too loudly for the sake of the second elder and Yin Rumei. However, not everyone had such concerns. After seeing the second elder and Yin Rumei's embarrassing state, Fengde and the others couldn't help but burst into laughter. Especially Lu Feng. He laughed so exaggeratedly that he almost rolled on the ground. Your Excellency Lu Feng, please pay attention to your image. Fengde, who was standing beside Lu Feng, reminded him in a low voice. He had already seen many people looking at them. Ha! This is really too funny. Lu Feng laughed so hard that tears came out of his eyes. The second elder and Yin Rumei had bowed 9 times in total, and they had also fallen 9 times. Seeing this scene, he really felt that his hatred had been vented. No wonder that old man said he was stupid. Why didn't he expect such an interesting thing to happen at the wedding? AI. That little fox is so smart. It seemed like she had already expected this. However, he believed that the good show was yet to come, because the tigress was coming. Hee. This time they didn't even need to do anything. The tigress would take care of everything for them. I now announce. After the second elder and Yin Rumei had finished bowing with great difficulty, President Lu was about to announce that the ceremony was complete, but he was interrupted halfway. Wait! The second elder's wife, who had been hiding in the crowd for a long time, loudly said. Her voice instantly attracted everyone's attention. President Lu trembled in fear when he heard someone interrupt him. However, he kept his mouth shut when he saw the woman who obviously came with ill intentions. The second elder's eyes were so swollen that they were only a slit. When he saw the familiar yet blurry figure in front of him, His round body trembled like a leaf in the wind. Moreover, he wasn't the only one. Inrume was also nervous and afraid. The two of them thought to themselves at the same time. Heavens! Why was this tigress here? How did she know about this? The second elder's marriage to Inrume was actually a plan they had secretly discussed. They had originally planned to wait for this matter to die down before separating. However, they didn't expect that tigress to find out about their matter and personally come to the divine continent. Now they wouldn't be able to clear their names even if they jumped into the Yellow River. Yen, or what are you doing here? The second elder's voice trembled as he spoke. You really didn't want me to come? Ningyan narrowed her eyes and said in a cold tone. She kept scolding him in her heart. This heartless man. Why did I fall in love with him in the first place? She even wanted to try her best and even used her family's power to help him sit in a high position in the Armament Guild headquarters. Now great, he had power and influence. He even dared to marry a concubine home for her, and it was such a big deal. When she thought of this, the anger in her heart burned. How could that be? The second elder forced out a smile and tried to please him. Humph. This ugly woman is the concubine you want to marry? Ningyan ignored the second elder and turned to Inrume. The second elder didn't know what to say to Ningyan. In front of the great elder, he didn't dare to say that his agreement to the marriage was just a temporary stopgap measure. Otherwise the great elder wouldn't let him off. I heard that Vice President In is a beauty. Seeing you today, you're indeed extraordinary. Ningyan said with a mocking smile. Yener is here. At this moment, the first elder sitting on the main seat said with a faint smile. Hello, great elder. I'm here to attend my husband's wedding. If I don't show up for such a big event like my husband marrying a concubine, how can the concubine enter our family's door? Ningyan said with a smile. Well said. It's my negligence. I saw that they were in love with each other, and had done it as a married couple. I was afraid that it would affect Vice President In's reputation, so I was in a hurry to arrange their marriage. Yener, please don't blame me. The first elder said apologetically. Please keep reading 0 and MYB 0x and 0VEL. Great elder is too serious. This matter was indeed not handled properly by my husband. In fact, even if he wanted to take a concubine, he only needed to inform me. There was no need to be sneaky. Ningyan said hurriedly. In fact, she was quite afraid of the first elder, and her father had repeatedly warned her not to offend the first elder no matter who she offended, so even if she was angry, she had to be polite to this old man. Yener has misunderstood. The second elder is not marrying a concubine. The first elder said with an evil smile. Don't tell me she's your equal wife? Ningyan was a little angry. Not really, the great elder denied. What's that? Ningyan was confused. Even if she wasn't a common wife, she wasn't a concubine, so she couldn't be the main wife, right? That damned man didn't have the guts to divorce her. Chapter 1078. Killing with a borrowed knife 2. Bed-warming girl. Vice President In would rather be a bed-warming servant girl than marry second elder. I was touched by their love, so I arranged everything for them. The great elder said in a well-mannered manner. So you're marrying a bed-warming servant girl? Ningyan dragged out her voice. However, anyone who knew her would know that this was a sign of her anger. And Ningyan was indeed even angrier. Never in her wildest dreams would she have thought that Inrume would rather be a bed-warming servant girl to marry her man. And that damned man, even though he clearly knew that she was only taking in a bed-warming servant girl, he still made such a big deal out of it. What did this mean? It meant that there were real feelings between them. Thinking of this, the jealousy and anger in her heart burned wildly. Right now, she really wanted to kill someone. Inrume naturally bore the brunt of it, and became the main target for her to vent her anger. She pointed at Inrume and ordered her subordinates. Let this bed-warming servant girl kowtow to me, the matriarch of the house, and offer me tea. Yes. More than 10 burly men said in unison. It was unknown who kicked first, but only a plop was heard. Inrume rolled onto the floor. I want you to kneel and kowtow, not lie down. Ningyan kicked Inrume in disgust. Inrume wanted to speak, but she couldn't say anything. She felt so aggrieved. Damn woman, isn't she just relying on her status as the eldest miss of the Ning family? Sooner or later, she would teach her a lesson. She would not let Lung Ruoxue and the others off either. You. Make her kneel properly. Ningyan shouted and ordered her subordinates. Kneel. Kowtow to my family's young miss and offer her tea. Otherwise, don't even think about entering my family's son-in-law's door. A burly man grabbed Inrume's hair and lifted her up like a little chick. Then, he kicked Inrume's knees twice and 2 crisp sounds were heard. Inrume knelt down. But at the same time, a howl that sounded like a pig being slaughtered reverberated through the entire hall. Ah! Inrume cried out in pain, but no one present dared to speak up for her. Immediately after, the burly man brought over a cup of hot tea and stuffed it into Inrume's hands. Ah! There was another scream, and a bang was heard. The teacup fell to the ground, and the hot tea spilled all over Inrume's body. Her hands were red and swollen. One could only imagine how hot the tea had been. You're really trash, you can't even hold a cup of tea steadily. This gave her a reasonable excuse that Inrume hadn't offered her tea, so she couldn't enter the Yu family. You. Inrume glared at Ningyan angrily. Although the other party was the young lady of the Ning family, she had been in a high position in the armament guild for many years. Although she didn't dare to say that she could get whatever she wanted, she had never been humiliated like this. Thus, she now hated Ningyan and secretly swore that as long as she escaped today, she would pay back this humiliation double in the future. What? Ningyan lifted her eyes and said arrogantly, Great Elder, I'm really sorry. I was originally happy to attend my husband's wedding, but I didn't expect this bed-warming girl to not serve me tea. So this wedding cannot be counted. I hope Great Elder doesn't blame me. Ningyan turned to First Elder. It's fine. However, they did have sex after all, so, First Elder deliberately said half a sentence and left half a sentence. Since Vice President Yin is willing to be a bed-warming servant, he'll naturally grant her wish. Ningyan was very open and generous. Good. Everyone says that Yen'er is easily jealous, but I don't think so. Yen'er is definitely a magnanimous matriarch. The exchange between the two of them had decided Inrume's future. Since Inrume had fallen into Ningyan's hands, she naturally wouldn't have a good ending. Just like that, the wedding came to an end, and the second elder and Inrume were locked up by Ningyan. Ningyan was also temporarily staying at the Craftsman's Guild. She was currently living in Inrume's residence. Ever since she had moved in, the people of the Craftsman's Guild would often hear screams from Inrume's courtyard. They didn't need to guess to know that this was the mistress of the house punishing the disobedient bed-warming servant girl. At Lung Ruoxue's residence, it had been 3 days since the wedding, and everyone was very relaxed. However, Lu Feng looked depressed and sad. In the garden, after Lu Feng had sighed countless times, Lung Ruoxue, who was napping on the deck chair, opened her beautiful eyes unwillingly. She couldn't help but ask N, what's wrong with you? Please keep reading 0 and MYB 0xn0 VEL. Calm. Why hasn't Inrume been played to death by Ningyan yet? It's such a pity. Lu Feng said helplessly. You're sighing nonstop just for this. Lung Ruoxue was a little speechless. Wasn't this Lu Feng a little too boring? Yup. Lu Feng nodded his head naturally, not feeling that there was anything wrong with his thoughts. You're so boring. Lung Ruoxue said honestly. That's right. You're really too bored. Have you finished forging the equipment I asked you to? At this time, the first elder's voice suddenly rang in everyone's ears. You stinky old man, I'll do it if you ask me to. Then he'll lose face. Lu Feng said in a bad mood, That damned old man actually handed Inrume over to Ningyan to deal with. Even though he knew that Inrume dying at Ningyan's hands was better than being killed by him. It would be good if it fell. But he was not happy. I'm the head elder of the Armament Guild headquarters. Do you dare to not refine the equipment I ask you to? The great elder's eyes widened as he roared. I'm also the vice president of the Armament Guild headquarters. Even if you're the great elder, you can't control me. Lu Feng refuted. You little brat. am going to impeach you now. Do you believe me? The great elder threatened like a child. Are you trying to abuse your power? Why didn't I see you impeach second elder and In Rume when I was almost killed? Lu Feng sneered. The implication was that you didn't care about the evidence and instead you threatened me. Chapter 1079. Killing with a Borrowed Knife 3. Why should I impeach them? Wouldn't that be too easy on them? Now we don't need to do anything. Someone will take care of them for us. The first elder said proudly. Why didn't this little brat understand what he was thinking? He was really infuriated. Don't make it sound so nice. You're clearly a coward. Lu Feng said in a bad mood. However, his words were obviously said in a fit of anger, and he was deliberately trying to anger this old man. You brat, you dare to say that about me? You really don't want to live anymore. The great elder roared. After he finished speaking, he began to chase Lu Feng in the garden. Master! Grandpa! Mo Yen and Lu Yu shouted in unison, their faces filled with helplessness. This old man and young man were like two volcanoes, and as long as they met, they would create intense sparks. However, they enjoyed it and never got tired of it, so it was hard on them, the spectators. Little girl, you should quickly make them stop. Mo Yen knew that he could not persuade his master, so he asked Lung Ruoxia for help. Why did you ask them to stop? Fighting is healthier. Besides, didn't you realize that the more they fight, the better their relationship is? This is their special way of getting along, and others won't understand. Lung Ruoxia said in understanding. Ever since she found out about their grandfather-grandson relationship, she had a clear understanding of the way they interacted. However, after finding out about their relationship, Lung Ruoxia actually felt some sympathy for the second elder and In Rume. Those two fools were so afraid of the great elder. Yet they didn't know that the Lu Feng she wanted to kill was actually the great elder's grandson. He was really curious about what kind of expression they would have if they knew about this. But, is this really going to work? Lu Yue was a little worried. Her grandfather and younger brother's tempers were exactly the same. They were both extremely stubborn. Don't worry, no one will die. Lung Ruoxia consoled. But her words made Lu Yue even more worried. And reality proved that Lu Yu's worry was not without reason. Not long after, the old man and the young man who were chasing each other in the garden began to fight with real swords and guns. Little fox, make them stop. Otherwise, your garden will be destroyed. Seeing this, Lu Yue quickly reminded him. If even your grandson and disciple can't do anything, how can I stop them? And as the saying goes, if the old is not gone, the new will not come. I have been dissatisfied with this garden for a long time, so I can take this opportunity to change it to a new one. Lung Ruoxia said with a smile. After hearing Lung Ruoxia's words, Mo Yen and Lu Yu's hearts sank at the same time. They thought to themselves, this little girl is planning to rip me off again. After a long time, Lu Feng and the great elder were tired from the fight, so they lay down on the grass, and the originally beautiful garden was destroyed by them. At this moment, Lung Ruoxia stood up slowly and walked in front of the grandfather and grandson duo. She chuckled and said, Are you guys done? Do you want to have another fight? No, we've had enough. Lu Feng hurriedly said. When he saw Lung Ruoxia's smile that clearly had ill intentions, he realized what he had done. He was done for. This little fox would not let him off. How about you, great elder? Lung Ruoxia's beautiful eyes turned towards first elder. I've had enough too, Sai. I'm old. After chasing for a while, this little brat is tired. The first elder sighed. He had not known Lung Ruoxia for long, so he clearly had not realized that he was being schemed against. Since you've had enough, you can pay now, Lung Ruoxia said with a smile. The sweet smile on her beautiful face made her look extremely harmless. However, the words she said made people feel like vomiting blood. Pay for what? First elder asked in a daze. For a moment he still couldn't understand. You destroyed my garden and injured my servants. Of course you have to compensate me. Lung Ruoxia replied matter-of-factly. I admit that we destroyed the garden, but when did we hurt your servant? The first elder looked at the garden that was filled with wolves and couldn't deny it. That's right. Little fox, you can't wrong us. Lu Feng also said. It was rare that he didn't oppose the great elder. Butler, come here. Lung Ruoxue said to the butler who was not far away. Please keep reading 0 in MYB 0X and 0 VEL. Calm, Mississippi. The butler walked over with a bit of embarrassment. Your fight just now has injured the steward. Lung Ruoxue pointed at the uncomfortable butler. Which part of him is injured? Lu Feng and the first elder looked the head butler up and down, but they could not find the spot where Lung Ruoxue had said was injured. His face is injured, sigh. I hope you're not disfigured. Lung Ruoxue pretended to be worried. Little fox, you call such a small wound an injury? Lu Feng was speechless. The so-called wound on the butler's face was at most 2 centimeters in size. Furthermore, it did not bleed much. It was just a small cut on his face, but Lung Ruoxue had said it was an injury. This was clearly a scam. The size of the injury doesn't matter. The steward's face injury isn't serious, but his heart is hurt. If he had taken one more step forward, I'm afraid he would have lost his life. Lung Ruoxue said in an exaggerated manner. Her words made the housekeeper's heart jump and his face turn red. He couldn't help but think in his heart that the young miss was really too terrifying. How could he have been so blind to provoke this little devil? However, his previous master seemed to be in a worse state than him, because Dirun was still working hard to get his freedom. But in his opinion, Dirun had no hope of freedom. Little girl, how much do you want as compensation? Name your price. The first elder looked at Lung Ruoxue with interest. Even though he was about to be ripped off by this little girl, he wasn't angry at all. After so many years, he had finally found a girl with the same temperament as him. He suddenly felt as if he had met a kindred spirit, but unfortunately, his 2 grandsons were not so black-bellied. With the status of the 2 of you, I don't dare to ask for an exorbitant price. I'll compensate you according to your net worth. After all, if I ask for too little, I'll be letting down your status. Lung Ruoxue said after some thought. Chapter 1080. Killing with a Borrowed Knife 4. After hearing Lung Ruoxue's words, Lu Feng was furious. He thought to himself, she's indeed a greedy vampire. She told them to pay according to their value, but if they pay too little, this wretched girl will definitely say, so this is all you're worth. In any case, they would not be able to gain any advantage. Little girl, I really admire you. I'll pay for it. The first elder laughed happily. Then, he took out a pile of multicolored top-grade crystals from his ring and placed them in front of Lung Ruoxue. This should be enough. That's enough. Lung Ruoxue smiled in satisfaction. Then, she kept the premium crystal stones and turned her attention to Lu Feng. I didn't bring that much money. Lu Feng gritted his teeth and said, damn it, that old man was actually still laughing after being killed. He was really angry. It doesn't matter. You can write me an IOU. Of course, you can also sell your body to pay off the debt like Dirun. However, no matter what, I will still collect interest. Lung Ruoxue laughed evilly. You really are a money-grubbing vampire. Lu Feng said helplessly. He resignedly took out a few top-grade crystals from his ring and piled them on the grass. This should be enough. Lu Feng said in an unpleasant tone. It's barely passable. Who asked you to only have this much net worth? I understand. Lung Ruoxue said in an infuriating manner as she kept the crystal stones on the ground into her bracelet. Lu Feng was infuriated. He took out some more top-grade crystals from his ring and pointed at the crystals while gritting his teeth. You're not good. This should be enough. Yes. Lung Ruoxue nodded her head in satisfaction. How could she not be satisfied with this unexpected gain? Not far away, Mo Yen and Lu Yu saw this scene and shook their heads helplessly. They secretly made up their minds not to provoke this little girl in the future. Otherwise, they would probably die without even knowing how they died. He stayed there for a few more days. At this moment, the incident between the second elder of the Craftsmen's Guild and Yin Rume had already spread throughout the entire firmament, and had become a topic of gossip for the people in the firmament. When Lung Ruoxue found out about this, she only smiled and said, The people of the divine realm are also quite boring. However, these gossips and scandals weren't within her scope of concern. What she was more concerned about was when Miss Ning would torture Yin Rumei to death. As such, before Ningyan left Fiery City, they had been staying there. Apart from cultivating every day, she had also asked Qingju to keep an eye on the situation there. Half a month later, in the garden where Leng Ruoxue and the others were staying, Mo Yen, Lu Feng, and Lu Yu were sitting on the stone chairs in the garden and chatting. However, the three of them were obviously not in high spirits. In fact, ever since Leng Ruoxue and the rest went into closed-door cultivation, this place was not as lively as usual. I don't know when they'll come out. Lu Feng sighed and said in a depressed tone. If the little fox was here, there would still be someone who could argue with him. But now, there was no one who could argue with him. And that stinky old man didn't have time to bother with him. He only knew how to hold on to his disciple all day long. He really couldn't tolerate it. If you're bored, you can go to Grandpa, Lu Yue teased. That old man doesn't have time for me now, Lu Feng said weakly. He didn't want to embarrass himself. 3 sirs, something big has happened. Suddenly, the butler jogged to the garden and stopped in front of them, panting. What happened? Mo Yen frowned and asked in confusion. In Rumeishi, the butler stuttered. She's dead. Lu Feng quickly asked. Yes. The butler nodded repeatedly. Ha. That bitch has finally gotten her retribution. This is great. Lu Feng laughed happily. No, I have to confirm it. That woman is too scheming. If it's not her, wouldn't I be overjoyed for nothing? Lu Feng stood up and said very cautiously. Please keep reading 0 and MYB0X and 0VEL. Come. Do you think she can escape from Ningyan? You're overestimating her. Mo Yen said helplessly. However, they really had to go and take a look. After all, Yin Rumei was a member of the Craftsmen's Guild, so they had to put on an act. You guys go and see her. I'll go inform Grandpa. Lu Yue stood up and said. The internal affairs of the Craftsmen's Guild involved the Ning family, so it was better for him not to get involved. Anyway, even if he didn't go, Lu Feng would tell him. Yes. Mo Yen and Lu Feng nodded, and the 3 of them split up. Mo Yen and Lu Feng arrived at Yin Rumei's residence together. At this time, the door to the courtyard was wide open, and the 2 of them walked in without any hindrance. Chapter 1081, Volcanic Eruption 1. When the 2 arrived at the main courtyard, they met Ning Yan, second elder, and the others who were about to leave. Lu Feng looked at the second elder with a faint smile and said, Where are second elder and Miss Ning planning to go? Why don't you stay for a few more days? We've stayed here long enough, and it's time for us to return to the divine realm. Furthermore, it's my father-in-law's birthday in a few days. Thus, we have to rush back to celebrate with him. The second elder wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and said uncomfortably. In fact, he was a little scared. He didn't expect the 2 of them to come so quickly. They wouldn't be able to leave so easily. How could this be good? It was all this tiger's fault for being too heavy-handed and actually killing Yin Rumei. This time, the Ning family was probably going to bleed a lot. Oh, then why didn't I see the vice president with you guys? Lu Feng played dumb. That. She still has something to do here, so she won't be going back with us for now. The second elder said nervously. Oh really? But I heard that the vice president is dead? Lu Feng laughed evilly. This matter had already been exposed. Did the second elder think that he could still hide it? He could not help but laugh to himself. This, the second elder stuttered. She is indeed dead. Ning Yan suddenly said. Oh, may I ask how she died? Lu Feng asked calmly, and couldn't help but secretly sigh. This second elder was actually not as daring as a woman to take responsibility for her actions. He was really too useless. I told her to set the rules, but I didn't expect her body to be so weak. She didn't last long before she died. A human life was nothing in her eyes, so she didn't think it was a big deal to lose Yin Rumei. She was sure that the Craftsmen's Guild wouldn't dare to do anything to her. Since Vice President Yin has already become the second elder's bed-warming servant girl, This is also your family matter, and we shouldn't have asked about it. However, Rume is the vice president of our Armament Guild headquarters after all. She has died without knowing why. You have to give us the Armament Guild headquarters and the world an explanation. Lu Feng said with a faint smile. How could she have died for no reason? Didn't I tell you that she had to set the rules? Her body was too weak to take it, so she died. Ning Yan said angrily. Damn Lu Feng, is he deliberately going against me? Setting rules can kill a god king. I would like to ask Miss Ning, what are the rules in your family? Lu Feng asked curiously. What does this have to do with you? Ning Yan roared in anger. Of course it's my business. Rume is a member of our Armament Guild headquarters. She was fine when I handed her to you, but it's only been a few days. You killed him. Don't you think this has nothing to do with our Armament Guild? Of course, if Miss Ning insists that it has nothing to do with us, then I can only ask the president and the great elder to personally go to the Ning family and ask Master Ning for advice. Lu Feng said with a smirk. What do you want? Ning Yan was furious, but she was helpless against Lu Feng. I don't want anything. I just want Miss Ning and the Ning family to give us an explanation from the Armament Guild. Of course, there's also Second Elder. Because of a moment of pleasure, he actually played Vice President Yin to death. I really don't know how he'll have the face to stay in the Armament Guild headquarters in the future. Lu Feng said worriedly. This is none of my business. When the Second Elder heard this, he quickly quibbled. If it's not your business, does it have something to do with me? Lu Feng sneered and asked. He was very disdainful of the Second Elder's lack of responsibility. Could this even be considered a man? She was simply a disgrace to all men. After hearing Lu Feng's words, the Second Elder had intended to defend himself, but under Ning Yan's glare, he swallowed his words and did not dare to speak. Rume is already dead. Whatever conditions you blacksmiths have, just state them. Our Ning family can afford it. Ning Yan raised her head and said arrogantly. Miss Ning, that's not right. I've said it before. I want the Ning family to give an explanation to the Armament Guild. If we raise conditions, why does it feel like the Armament Guild is extorting you? Lu Feng said unhappily. That's right. The Ning family must give the Craftsmen's Guild an explanation for this matter. Vice President Yin can't die without knowing why. Mo Yan, who had been silent the entire time, chimed in. Miss Ning, Second Elder, before this matter is concluded, you two can stay here temporarily. Lu Feng said with a smile. He had imprisoned them. After that, the two of them turned around and left. Madam, what should we do? After Mo Yan and Lu Feng left, the Second Elder asked in a daze. Please keep reading 0 in MYB 0X and 0VEL. Calm good for nothing, this is just a small matter. You're so scared. Ning Yan roared in exasperation. Then a pa sound was heard. With a sound, a slap landed on the Second Elder's face. Madam, the Second Elder looked at Ning Yan aggrievedly, not daring to say another word. Not long after, President Lu was ordered to take Rumai's corpse away. After Mo Yan and Lu Feng's careful confirmation, they finally confirmed that this person was indeed Rume. Moreover, she had been tortured beyond recognition by Ning Yan, and her body was covered in wounds. From this, it could be seen how heavy Ning Yan's attack was. A woman's heart is the most vicious. This Ning Yan is really ruthless. Lu Feng was speechless as he looked at Rumai's body full of wounds. He was filled with admiration for Ning Yan's endless tricks. If Rume had fallen into his hands, he knew that he definitely wouldn't have been able to think of so many tricks. She asked for this. Suddenly, Lung Ruoxia's voice rang in the ears of Lu Feng and the rest. Little fox, you've come out of seclusion? Lu Feng said in surprise. I'm not officially in closed-door cultivation. Lung Ruoxia rolled her eyes at Lu Feng. Rumai's matter and the disheveled old man's matter were both settled. How could she officially go into seclusion? Oh, you've come out at the right time. Rume is dead. Lu Feng reported. Chapter 1082. Volcanic eruption 2. I've heard about it. Lung Ruoxia replied perfunctorily. Actually, she had asked Qingju to keep an eye on the situation over there. Thus, she had known about this matter at the first moment, but she did not come out immediately. That's right, the second elder is still alive and well. AI. Why didn't Ning Yan torture second elder to death? It's such a pity. Lu Feng said with some regret. Do you want Miss Ning to kill her husband? So ruthless. Leng Ruoxua laughed evilly. She couldn't help but think to herself. Does Lu Feng have some deep hatred for Ning Yan? Otherwise, why would he want Ning Yan to kill second elder as well? He was really too ruthless. Hehe. You don't know this, but Ning Yan is not only a tigress, she's also a tigress with violent tendencies. Second elder has been beaten up by her many times, so if she were to hit him a little harder, she might really catcha him too. Drop. Lu Feng said with some schadenfreude. Then I wish that your wish will come true soon. Leng Ruoxua was speechless. Hehe. Lu Feng laughed foolishly. What kind of wish could this stinky brat have? The first elder strode over with the disheveled old man and said with a little dissatisfaction. Humph. This little brat actually dared to hide something from him. How preposterous. It's none of your business. Lu Feng said in an unpleasant tone. Stop. Settle En Romai's matter first, and then you guys can argue as much as you want. Seeing that the battle between the two of them was about to erupt, Leng Ruoxua felt a headache coming on as she spoke hurriedly. Didn't she die? What else could it be? The disheveled old man asked in confusion. Stupid. En Romai was dead. However, the Ning family has to give us the Armament Guild an explanation. How could such a living person, and a god king at that, die in vain? It's not easy for us to cultivate a vice president. The first elder patted the disheveled old man's head, and said with snot and tears in his eyes. Those who did not know the inside story would definitely be heartbroken for him. In fact, he was excited, because En Romai would not have died in vain. Oh, I heard that the Ning family is very rich. The disheveled old man, who had finally reacted, said hurriedly. He's not just rich. Other than the Divine Master, the Ning family can't be compared to him. In the entire Divine Realm, the Ning family is the most powerful and the richest. The first elder said with an envious expression. Grand Elder, why did I hear that you're friends with the master of the Ning family? Leng Ruoxua asked in confusion when she saw the first elder's evil smile and scheming. What friend? We're just fair-weather friends, and that old man has always schemed against me. I'm just returning the favor. Moreover, the one who died this time was the deputy chairman of the Craftsmen's Guild. I have to give the guild and all the craftsmen in the divine realm an explanation. The great elder's righteous and dignified words implied that this was not his personal matter, but the entire association's matter. As long as it rose to the level of official business, it could not be decided by personal factors. Therefore, this time, the great elder was self-righteous and wanted to kill people. Since that's the case, we have to seek justice for Vice President En. Leng Ruoxua chuckled. She wasn't the one who was about to be slaughtered anyway, so she was happy to watch the show. Immediately after, the great elder sent the news back to the Divine Realms Craftsmen's Guild. Half a month later, the Craftsmen's Guild sent another elder, and accompanying him was a representative sent by the Ning family. The person sent by the Ning family was definitely an important figure in the Ning family, because he was the next master of the Ning family, Ning Haolan. The first thing Ning Haolan did after arriving in Yanhua City was to pay a visit to the First Elder. At the same time, First Elder was in the garden, telling Leng Ruoxua and the others about Ning Haolan's glorious deeds. That Ning Haolan is a rare genius. He had already become a god king before he was even 40 years old. Because of Ning Haolan, his clan had already become the pride of the Ning clan. He had even been designated as the next clan head of the Ning clan long ago, and had always been learning from that old fogey. He really did not think that the old fogey would actually send him out this time. Hee. It seems like he's trying to train him. The first elder laughed softly. He's not even 40 years old yet? What's the relationship between him and the head of the Ning family? Leng Ruoxua asked curiously. Since Master Ning was friends with the first elder, he must be quite old. He couldn't have a son this young, right? I guess he's his grandson. That old man has too many children, and he doesn't even recognize many of them, haha. The first elder felt that it was funny. Hearing first elder's words, Lung Ruoxue was speechless. He had so many children that even the father could not recognize them. How many children did he have? Haha. Little girl, the strong warriors of the divine realm will naturally have many women. And once they become a god, their lifespans will be extremely long. If they become reverent gods, they will even be able to live forever. So, do you think it's possible that he will have few children? The great elder teased. Please keep reading 0 and MYB 0xn 0VEL. That's true. Lung Ruoxue nodded. At this moment, the butler came to report that Ning Haolan wanted to see the first elder. Lung Ruoxue and first elder looked at each other. Then first elder stood up and said to the crowd, "Do you guys want to come with me to meet Ning Haolan? This child is not bad. Let's not go first. He's probably looking for you to talk about Inrume. It's not appropriate for us to go." Lung Ruoxue chuckled. Alright then. I'll let you two meet in the future if I have the chance. The Grand Elder said before heading to the front hall to meet Ning Haolan. The first elder and Ning Haolan had a secret discussion for almost a day. After the discussion, the first elder did not tell anyone what they talked about. However, Lung Ruoxue and the others were not too concerned about it. After that, Ning Haolan took second elder and Ning Yen with him. 3 days later, the news of the second elder's death came from the god world. The crowd was speechless when they heard the news. Not only had the second elder died, but he had also been killed by Ning Yan's domestic violence. It was too amazing. After Ning Yan had tortured a god king to death, another god king had died by her hands. Everyone was deeply impressed by her means. In their hearts, Ning Yan was definitely a god king killer. After Inrume and the second elder's matter had come to an end, Lung Ruoxue and the others continued on their journey to search for the divine fire. This time, apart from Lu Feng, there were 3 more people with them. Chapter 1083. Volcanic Eruption 3. The excuse that Mo Yen and the first elder came with was quite reasonable. They said that they wanted to help the disheveled old man. After all, the disheveled old man was a craftsman, and they had high hopes for him. Therefore, if they were to encounter any danger, they could also help. As for Liyue following him, Lung Ruoxue could not understand. Liyue's reason was that the disheveled old man was his younger brother's disciple, which meant that he was his disciple. For something as important as advancing his life's flame, he had to follow. However, from Lung Ruoxue's point of view, the 3 of them were obviously bored out of their minds. That was why they insisted on following them. In reality, they were only there to search for the divine flame. As for upgrading their natal flame, it would not be something that could be done in a short period of time. Moreover, with these great Buddhas following them, it would not be so convenient for them to enter the bracelet. However, it would also be much safer for them. The group searched the godly mainland for 3 months, but there was still no trace of the godly fire. This made everyone wonder if the godly fire still existed on the godly mainland. The disheveled old man was even more depressed. The floating cloud city was a medium-sized city in the Qi family's divine domain. Lung Ruoxue and the rest had arrived here after searching the divine mainland for 3 months. In the northern part of the floating cloud city, there was a small, nameless volcano. This was the last volcano that Lung Ruoxue and the others had not found on the godly land. If it was not found here, they could only wait until they went to the godly world to continue searching for the whereabouts of the godly fire. The nameless volcano was located within the floating cloud city. Thus, Lung Ruoxue and the others chose to settle down in the floating cloud city. After finding an inn in the city, Lung Ruoxue and the rest had some food before returning to their own rooms to rest. In the room, Lung Ruoxue stood by the window alone, deep in thought. "Shui, or what are you thinking about?" The demon walked over and gently pulled Lung Ruoxue into his arms. "Demon, the small volcano in the floating cloud city is the last volcano on the godly mainland. If there isn't one here..." Lung Ruoxue was in a difficult position and did not finish her sentence. Little fool. If it's not here, then we'll wait until our strength has increased and go to the divinity to look for it. Unless the divine fire is extinct, we'll definitely find it. The demon consoled. But the disheveled old man, Lung Ruoxua wanted to say something but stopped. They knew the disheveled old man's expectations for the divine fire. Therefore, they naturally did not want him to be disappointed. He's not a child anymore, he'll understand. There would definitely be some disappointment, but he believed that the disheveled old man would adjust himself. Yes, demon, let's go out for a walk. There don't seem to be many people in this city. Lung Ruoxua suggested. Ever since they entered the city, they had not met many people on the streets. However, this was just what she wanted. She did not like crowded places. All right, he said. The demon nodded and the two of them left the inn. As they walked on the streets, Lung Ruoxua and the evildoer could not understand why the pedestrians were so flustered. The two of them stopped a passerby and wanted to find out what had happened. However, they gave the other party a shock. What do you want? Don't stop me, I still have important things to do. The middle-aged man who was stopped said anxiously. Don't be afraid, we just want to find out what happened. No matter how I look at you, you all seem flustered. Lung Ruoxua asked softly with a smile on her face. That beautiful smile of hers caused the middle-aged man opposite her to be in a daze. The volcano is about to erupt, and everyone is in a hurry to escape. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so few people in the city. The middle-aged man said hurriedly after he regained his senses. Volcano, the nameless volcano north of the floating cloud city? Didn't they say that the volcano was very small? Why are you running for your lives? Lung Ruoxua asked shamelessly. Even if a small volcano were to erupt, its power shouldn't be that strong, right? Was there a need to scare them to this extent? It's a volcano even when it's small. Moreover, I don't know what happened to the volcano in the past month, but it erupted every other day, causing us to suffer unspeakably. As a result, many people in the city have temporarily moved out of the floating cloud city. You guys should also leave quickly. Otherwise, even if you're injured, I'm afraid you'll lose your life. The middle-aged man advised and ran off. Lung Ruoxua and the evildoer looked at each other as they watched the middle-aged man's back. Then the two of them turned around and returned to the inn. The moment she entered the inn's main hall, Lung Ruoxua saw Fengda and the rest standing there. Please keep reading 0 in MYB 0xn0VEL. Come miss, you're finally back. After seeing Lung Ruoxua and evildoer, Fengda hurriedly walked up to them. Fengda, why aren't you resting in your room? Why did you come downstairs? Lung Ruoxua asked curiously. Miss, the innkeeper asked us to leave the inn. He said he was going to close the inn. Fengda explained. Close the shop. When Lung Ruoxua heard this, she raised her brows and looked at the nervous manager. Shopkeeper, we don't owe you money for the room, how can you drive us away? Lung Ruoxua looked at the innkeeper and said with slight dissatisfaction. Actually, she was very clear that the reason why the innkeeper wanted to close the shop was probably related to the little volcano that was about to erupt. However, they could not leave so easily. At this time, they would probably not be able to find any inn in the city. Miss, I don't want to either. However, the small volcano in the drifting cloud was about to erupt. Moreover, it was said that the frequency of the volcano's vibration this time was more serious than the previous ones. It was more important to escape. You should also quickly leave the floating cloud city. It's not safe here. The shopkeeper said anxiously, the cold sweat on his face dripping onto the floor. Manager, we won't leave. Lung Ruoxua said with a smile. They were here for the volcano. How could they leave before they achieved their goal? Miss, I'm begging you. I'll return the room money to you. Can you leave immediately? I really don't want to die. The shopkeeper pleaded with a long face. Just the checkout fee is enough? Lung Ruoxua laughed evilly. I'll refund you 2 times. The innkeeper said with a little heartache. Money could be earned again, but there was no place to earn money if they lost their lives. Therefore, he would rather spend a lot of money to get these people out of the inn. Chapter 1084. Volcanic Eruption 4. There's no need for 2. It's not easy for you to earn some money. Lung Ruoxua said very kindly. Even if she wanted to rip someone off, she wouldn't do it to a manager of an inn. In fact, she just wanted to know more about the small volcano that had been erupting frequently recently. Then what does the young lady want? The shopkeeper was a little confused. Shopkeeper, to tell you the truth, we came to the floating cloud city for that volcano. Therefore, you have to tell us everything you know about that volcano. If we are satisfied, we will immediately move out. Lung Ruoxue said with a smile. Previously, she had not managed to get much useful information from the middle-aged man. Hence, she would not let the manager off this time. Miss, that volcano is very dangerous. You must not go there. The shopkeeper couldn't help but advise. It's just a small volcano. We're not afraid. Lung Ruoxue said disapprovingly. All right then. The shopkeeper was helpless, but he had to leave. Seeing that he couldn't persuade these people, he could only tell Lung Ruoxue and the rest about the situation of the volcano in detail. After that, Lung Ruoxue and the rest kept their promise and left the inn. Walking on the streets of the floating cloud city, Fonda could not help but ask, Miss, we'll have to sleep on the streets again tonight. There's no other way. We can't possibly not allow them to escape. Lung Ruoxue said helplessly. At this moment on the streets, other than their group, there was not a single stranger to be seen. Furthermore, the shops by the side of the street were all closed, and the entire city was in a state of depression. I'm really curious about the power of that volcano. It's actually able to make everyone in the city flee at the mere sight of it. It's really amazing. Lu Tao couldn't help but ask, her beautiful face full of anticipation. Little girl, a volcano in the divine realm is a natural disaster for the people on the divine mainland, so it's normal for them to run away. Otherwise, once the volcano erupts, the temperature is not something they can withstand. When the volcano erupts, remember to hide behind us. Otherwise, I'm afraid you won't be able to withstand the high temperature. First Elder explained and reminded. Then he'll have to trouble Great Elder. Lung Ruoxue chuckled. She was just thinking about how to protect her grandfather and the others. The Great Elder had actually taken the initiative to come to her door, so what was there to be polite about? Good. However, you have to make me more delicious food. The Great Elder took the opportunity to raise his conditions. That's not a problem. However, you're already a divine emperor, so why are you still so gluttonous? Lung Ruoxue was speechless. The First Elder, Mo Yen Lu Feng, and Lu Yu were all gluttons. It was as if they had not seen any food in their entire lives. That was why their reserves had decreased sharply recently. However, when it was time to collect money, Lung Ruoxue would never be polite with them. After all, these few people had plenty of money. What's wrong with the divine emperor? Can't an emperor god eat? Little girl, you can't look down on the divine emperor. The First Elder said pitifully, as if Lung Ruoxue had said something she shouldn't have. Who would dare to look down on the divine emperor? I can't wait to curry favor with you, old man. Lung Ruoxue said helplessly. This is more like it. The Great Elder chuckled. Although he knew that this little girl was only talking about it, and was in fact too lazy to curry favor with him, he felt comfortable hearing it. They chatted as they walked. They found a relatively remote place on the street, and set up their tents. After a short rest, they went to the nameless volcano the next morning. When they were still some distance away from the volcano, Lung Ruoxue and the others could feel the vibration and high temperature of the volcano that was about to erupt. Furthermore, the path to the volcano was filled with red traces of dried lava, and it even emitted a faint smell of sulfur. As they neared the volcano's entrance, the tremors became more and more intense. Lung Ruoxue and the rest stopped in their tracks and observed for a while. However, before they could enter, they saw a 2-meter-tall, fiery red, burning lava spewing out from the inside of the volcano. Instantly, the moisture in the air was completely roasted dry, and their breathing also became somewhat difficult. Lung Ruoxue and the rest immediately floated into the air when they saw this. First Elder and the other 3 elders protected them behind them and set up a protective barrier in front of them. Even so, Lung Ruoxue and the rest could still feel the scorching heat. The temperature was so high that it could melt anything. As they looked over, They saw that the places where the fiery red lava passed by had all been turned into ashes. Upon seeing this scene, Lung Ruoxue and the rest couldn't help but feel slightly surprised. After all, this was the first time they had seen a volcano erupting in the divine realm. Its power was indeed extraordinary. No wonder a small volcano was able to scare away the people of the floating cloud city. Please keep reading 0 in MYB 0x and 0 VEL. Com. Chapter 1085. The two black-bellied little beasts. 1. Not only that, before Lung Ruoxue and the rest could recover from their shock, the second wave of flames surged out. This time, it was even more spectacular and violent than the previous time. The scorching flames burned half the sky red. Heavens! The eruption of such a small volcano is already so terrifying. What if it was a bigger volcano? Fengde looked at the soaring flames that were even taller than him, and said in a speechless manner, "The eruption of this volcano is a little abnormal. Logically speaking, such a small volcanic eruption shouldn't have such a great power." The great elder asked in bewilderment, "Should we go in and take a look?" Fengde asked like a curious baby, "We must go, but we can't go in now. Let's go back first." "Well, go in after the volcano erupts," First Elder said after some thought. If they entered now, they would be in danger, because this volcano was too abnormal compared to the one in his memory. "Well, let's go back first." Lung Ruoxue nodded as well. If they entered now, they would probably be turned into a part of the lava. With that, Lung Ruoxue summoned the little peacock. Everyone sat on the back of the little peacock and returned to the floating cloud city. When they returned to the tent they had set up, Lung Ruoxue and the rest began to prepare lunch. However, the little peacock was lying on the ground with a depressed look. Lung Ruoxue looked at the unhappy little peacock in amusement and asked, "Little peacock, what's wrong?" "Master, my feathers are burnt." The little peacock was depressed. "Oh, my beautiful and dazzling feathers. It was gone just like that." "It's fine. Eat this. I guarantee that your feathers will be intact." Lung Ruoxue chuckled as she took out a pure white pill from her bracelet. Just as she was about to hand it to the little peacock, a hand suddenly reached out and snatched it away. "What kind of pill is this? Let me see." Liyue held the pill in her hand and looked at it. Then her eyes widened, and she said in a speechless manner, "You actually used a saint-level healing pill to grow feathers for this little peacock? It's really too extravagant." Even in the immortal realm, the price of a saint-level pill was not low. After all, not only were they difficult to concoct, their cost was also extremely high. It was not something that ordinary deities could afford. Thus, saint-level pills had become a hot commodity. "Are you going to use divine-level medicinal pills?" Lung Ruoxue asked back with an innocent look. Just use this." Liyue took out a pill and threw it into the little peacock's mouth. The pill that Lung Ruoxue took out was naturally kept in his storage ring and confiscated by him. "Master, I'm done." After eating the pill, the little peacock stood up and walked to Lung Ruoxue's side. It rubbed against her affectionately, and then lay down beside its master. "Yes." Lung Ruoxue patted the little peacock's head gently. She did not express any suspicion towards Liyue's act of pocketing her pill. After all, even if Liyue took the pill away, she would not be able to find out anything about it. All of a sudden, Lung Ruoxue felt a disturbance in the space. She was overjoyed and said to everyone, "I'm tired, I'm going to take an afternoon nap." "I say, little girl, we haven't even had lunch yet. Why are you taking a morning nap?" The first elder said, somewhat speechless. After being with them for the past few days, he had also discovered that these people were very fond of sleeping. They would always sleep at any time. She really didn't know where they got so much sleep from. "Schwer'll sleep with you," the demon quickly said. However, he was secretly guessing in his heart. What's the matter with Schwer? He knew that Schwer's so-called sleep was just an excuse. She was actually planning to go into the space. Out of curiosity, he naturally had to follow her in to take a look. You still have to accompany me." First Elder was even more speechless. What the hell was this? He had to sleep in broad daylight, and someone had to accompany him. Why didn't he receive such good treatment? Thinking of this, First Elder felt a little unbalanced. Yes, there's nothing that my shui, or can't sleep for. Of course, I have to accompany her. The evildoer said matter-of-factly, not feeling that there was anything wrong with his words. However, the First Elder and the other 3 elders felt their hair stand on end, because they felt that his words were too nauseating. Demon, let's go in. Lung Ruoxue ignored the expressions of the 4 elders, and kept the little peacock into her bracelet. She then pulled the evil demon into the tent. He's really sleeping. Liyue could not help but ask when he saw Lung Ruoxue and the demon enter the tent. He thought that the 2 of them were just joking. How could it be fake? Hee. We all like to sleep just like Miss Fonda said with a smile. In fact, he wanted to go in as well, but it didn't seem convenient now. Yes, I can tell. Lu Feng said calmly. He had spent a little more time with Lung Ruoxue and the others, so he was no longer as surprised by their habits. Fonda laughed evilly and thought to himself, how would you know about our dirty tricks? Please keep reading 0 NMYB 0X and 0 VEL. Calm after Lung Ruoxue and the demon entered the tent, they went straight into the bracelet. However, before the 2 of them could stand still, 2 fluffy little balls had already pounced into Lung Ruoxue's arms. One of the 2 balls of fur was black and the other was yellow. They were Baobao and QiuQiu, who had been in closed-door cultivation for a long time. The 2 little things kept rubbing against each other in Lung Ruoxue's arms, expressing their longing. Lung Ruoxue, on the other hand, began to observe the 2 little fellows who had come out of their closed-door cultivation at the same time. However, even after looking at them from top to bottom, she could not find any difference between the 2 little fellows and before they had come out of their closed-door cultivation. This was too strange. Baobao, QiuQiu, have you 2 advanced in rank? Lung Ruoxue asked curiously. Yes. The 2 little furballs nodded in unison. Oh, but why can't I see any difference between you 2? Lung Ruoxue said honestly. Sister, we're a bit special, so the other beasts' ranks aren't suitable for us. QiuQiu spoke on behalf of the 2 beasts. I see. What's your level now? Lung Ruoxue asked again. We don't have a level. The 2 little beasts said in unison. Didn't he advance? How can it not have a level? Lung Ruoxue was depressed. Were these 2 little fellows trying to make her happy? Chapter 1086. The 2 black-bellied little beasts too. Big sister, we have indeed advanced, but we don't have a level. Our advancement only gives us more abilities. Baobao explained. Her fluffy and cute little face was full of pride. What new ability? Lung Ruoxue asked with great interest. My mind-reading technique has been upgraded to soul-searching technique. Moreover, my mental strength is very strong now. When I advance another level, I will be an adult. At that time, Baby stopped halfway and deliberately kept him in suspense. I've also become bad. Lung Ruoxue said helplessly. Big sister will let you know my ability. But not now. The baby said with a smug smile. Yes, QiuQiu, what about you? Lung Ruoxue looked at QiuQiu and asked. Big sister, my treasure hunting ability has greatly improved. Moreover, the range of my senses is 10 times larger than before. QiuQiu also said with a proud smile. QiuQiu is so powerful. Lung Ruoxue stroked QiuQiu's fur and laughed. Little QiuQiu had woken up at the perfect time. It just so happened that they had just entered the divine realm, and were in great need of accumulating strength. Of course, sister, let's go treasure hunting later. The more treasures I find and the higher the quality, the more beneficial it is for me to advance. Moreover, I'm the same as Baobao. I still need one more advancement to reach adulthood. Little QiuQiu said impatiently. QiuQiu, what kind of treasure do you need to find the most now? Lung Ruoxue asked. The best ones are, of course, heavenly treasures. I like treasures that are born from nature the most. Artificial cultivation won't do. QiuQiu said after some thought. Little QiuQiu, your requirements are really not low. Lung Ruoxue's forehead was dripping with cold sweat. Heavenly treasures weren't like cabbages. Where would QiuQiu find so many of them? Sister, there are many kinds of heavenly treasures. In fact, it's not just medicinal herbs and minerals, but also other things. As for what they are, I can't say for sure. You'll know when the time comes. QiuQiu explained. Yes, but we're helping the disheveled old man to find the divine fire now. After we're done finding the last volcano, we'll go and train. By then QiuQiu can find more treasures. Lung Ruoxue chuckled. QiuQiu's search for treasures was not only good for her own cultivation, it was also an accumulation of resources for them. This was definitely killing two birds with one stone. Divine flame? Big sister, if you're looking for a divine flame, I can also help. When QiuQiu heard that Lung Ruoxue was looking for the divine fire, it hurriedly said, "Are you sure?" Lung Ruoxue was a little skeptical. Could this little fellow still find the divine fire? Sister, the divine fire in nature is also born from heaven and earth, so I can sense it. QiuQiu chuckled. Ha ha. It's great that QiuQiu can sense the divine flame. Lung Ruoxue was extremely satisfied with this unexpected surprise. Sister, when are we going to look for her? QiuQiu couldn't wait any longer. Its natural mission was to search for treasures, and this could allow it to advance in rank, so it was happy and never tired of this. QiuQiu, that volcano is currently in its active period, so we can't enter it for the time being. We can only enter the mountain after its active period has passed. Lung Ruoxue explained. Oh, sister, take me out to play. QiuQiu pleaded. Then when you go out, you can't reveal that you can find treasures. Lung Ruoxue reminded. Yes. I'm just big sister's cute little pet. QiuQiu said in understanding. After advancing, its thinking had also matured a lot, so it naturally knew how precious it was. Sister, I want to go out and play too. The baby also begged. Okay, I'll bring you all out in a while. But don't be naughty when you're out. Lung Ruoxue warned. She wasn't worried about QiuQiu, but she was afraid that this little fellow would cause trouble. Sister, I won't cause any trouble. After hearing Lung Ruoxue's inner thoughts, Baby Sue said in an aggrieved tone. You said it yourself. Lung Ruoxue reminded. Please keep reading 0 in MYB 0xn0VEL. Come yes. Bao nodded and promised. Following that, Lung Ruoxue brought the evildoer and the two little beasts away from the bracelet. When the four elders saw the two humans and two beasts walking out of the tent, their faces were filled with question marks. Why did they come out so quickly? It had been less than half an hour, and he was already done sleeping? Why did you guys come out so quickly? Mo Yan, as the representative, asked the question that the four of them had. I took a short nap and came out after I was done. Lung Ruoxue explained casually. Little girl, what are those two fur balls in your arms? First elder looked at the fur ball in Lung Ruoxue's arms and could not help but ask curiously. He was also mumbling in his heart. Could it be that all girls like this kind of furry little thing? They're my beastie. They've been in closed-door cultivation all this time. Lung Ruoxue explained simply. Yes, I'm QiuQiu. I'm the baby. The two little beasts introduced themselves obediently. However, Fengde and the others who knew them well knew that these two little beasts were not as harmless as they looked. In fact, none of the beastie by the young miss side was harmless. Ha! These two little things are so obedient. The first elder chuckled. Yep. She's also cute. Mo Yan also agreed. Just like that, Bao and QiuQiu temporarily deceived the four elders with their unrivaled cuteness. They even became their favorite children. The small volcano in the floating cloud city had erupted for several days. During these few days, Lung Ruoxue and the others had been staying in their campsite. That place was quite far from the volcano, and there were many buildings in the surroundings. Therefore, it was relatively safe. But now, other than eating and sleeping, they could only play with the two cute little beasts. Sister, help. A few days later, in the evening, Lung Ruoxue and the rest were preparing dinner when suddenly, Baby Su's cry for help could be heard from not far away. What's wrong? It's the baby's voice. The first elder asked in confusion. Right now, there was no one else in the city other than them, So why would baby Su ask for help? Quickly go and take a look. Mo Yin said. After being with these two little beasts for a few days, he liked them very much, and they had indeed brought a lot of fun to them. Chapter 1087. The two black-bellied little beasts 3. When everyone heard this, they quickly put down what they were doing and ran in the direction of the baby's cry for help. After finding baby, Lung Ruoxue and the rest saw QiuQiu struggling in a young woman's arms, while baby was being chased by a few men in black, jumping left and right, trying to hide. After seeing Lung Ruoxue, the baby hurriedly jumped into her arms. Its little body was trembling nonstop, as if it was extremely afraid. It kept mumbling, "Sister, save me. Sister, save me." When QiuQiu saw Lung Ruoxue and the others, it struggled even more violently and shouted, "Sister, save me. Save me. Let me go, you bitch. Damned animal, who are you scolding?" The young woman who was holding QiuQiu shouted angrily, and even raised her fist to hit little QiuQiu. "Stop. Let it go." Lung Ruoxue said angrily as she sized up these people. The young woman looked to be in her 20s. She was very beautiful. Her strength wasn't high, only at the early divine realm. However, she had an arrogant expression on her face. Although the few black-clothed men beside her were stronger than her, they were obviously her subordinates. Lung Ruoxue understood when she saw these people. She wondered which family's unruly daughter this was. She probably saw that QiuQiu and Baobao were cute, and wanted to take them for herself. However, would she allow others to have any ideas about her beastie? "How dare you order me around?" When the young woman heard Lung Ruoxue's words, she was even more furious. Lung Ruoxue's devastatingly beautiful face was something that she could not tolerate. Damn it, how could there be such a beautiful woman in this world? "So what if I order you? Release it immediately, or else don't blame me for being impolite." Lung Ruoxue warned indifferently. "Do you know who I am? How dare you speak to me like this?" The young woman shouted at the top of her lungs. "I don't care who you are, let go of QiuQiu. Otherwise you'll regret it." Lung Ruoxue's beautiful eyes were half closed, ready to strike at any moment. Seeing QiuQiu struggling in pain, her heart ached. "I won't let go. What can you do to me? This young lady has taken a fancy to this little beast, it's mine." The young woman said in an overbearing and arrogant manner. "Oh really? I'll let you know what happens now." As soon as Lung Ruoxue finished speaking, a ray of red light flew towards the young woman at the speed of light. The red light circled around the young woman and the others once before returning to Lung Ruoxue's wrist. It was only then that the young woman could clearly see that the red light was actually a small, beautiful red snake with a crystal-like body. Instantly her eyes shone. He wanted to take over the little red snake again. "Give me that red snake in your hand," the young woman ordered. Ever since she was young, she had always liked beautiful and cute things. Therefore, after seeing the two little beasts and the little snake, she couldn't help but want them. "Who do you think you are?" Lung Ruoxue said disdainfully. After she finished speaking, she saw the young woman and the rest of the group go limp and fall to the ground. QiuQiu took the opportunity to escape from the woman's arms. However, before it left, it did not forget to stomp on the woman's face a few times. This cute action of its made everyone laugh out loud. "Ehe. Little QiuQiu did a great job, but your kicks were too light and didn't have much effect on her. Why don't you let me step on her for you?" The first elder was the first to carry QiuQiu and praised it. At the same time, he also released his beastie. The first elder's beastie came out and said loudly, "Master, who bullied little QiuQiu? Big Bear, it's them." QiuQiu pointed with its little paw and confessed everything about the young woman and the others. The great elder's beastie was an 8th-rank bear-type sacred god beast. Even in its mimicry state, it was close to 2 meters tall. In the past few days, it had become very familiar with the two little fellows QiuQiu and Baobao, so little QiuQiu naturally didn't hold back, directly using the big bear as a hatchet man. "Fuck, how dare you bully my friend? You're really looking for death." When De Xiong heard this, he was instantly enraged. He raised his foot and prepared to stomp on the young woman and the others. Lung Ruoxue looked at De Xiong's foot that was about to land and secretly sighed to herself. This great elder was really ruthless. If De Xiong were to step on them, those people would probably be turned into meat paste. This was really letting them off too easily. Wait. Just as De Xiong's foot was about to land, Lung Ruoxue suddenly spoke. What's wrong? De Xiong looked at Lung Ruoxue in confusion. His huge bare face was filled with question marks. Be gentle, don't kill anyone. Lung Ruoxue reminded kindly. Hee. Don't worry, I won't kill you easily. The big bear laughed evilly and quickly said, then immediately put his foot down. After a few stomps, even though the young woman and the rest were not crushed into meat paste, their injuries were not light. After doing all that, Lung Ruoxue and the rest left. Please keep reading 0 and MYB 0x and 0VEL. Calm after returning to his own encampment, Lu Feng looked at Lung Ruoxue with a strange expression. He asked in confusion. Little fox, when did you become so kind? I thought you'd ask Big Bear to kick harder. I'm not that cruel. I'm a kind-hearted good child. Lung Ruoxue rolled her eyes and said in a speechless manner. I didn't find anything. Lu Feng's face was filled with disbelief. Idiot. The little girl clearly doesn't want them to die too easily. Didn't you see that they've already been bitten by that little red snake? The first elder said with a face full of disappointment. How could he have such a stupid grandson? It would be great if this little girl was a part of their family. Thinking of this, he could not help but feel jealous of Lung Xiaoyu. The clueless Lung Xiaoyu was so frightened by the first elder's resentful gaze that her hair stood on end. Grandmaster, why are you staring at me? Lung Xiaoyu asked helplessly. I don't like the look of you, all right? The great elder said unhappily. Then he carried QiuQiu in his arms and sat at the side to sulk. What's wrong with this old man? Lu Feng said in a somewhat puzzled manner. He hadn't even had the time to talk back. The old man dodged to the side, which made him feel like he had punched cotton. Chapter 1088. The two black-bellied little beasts 4. I'm fine, hurry up and get to work. Lung Ruoxue urged, feeling amused. She did not even need to use green vessel to read the minds of her babies, but that little fellow had already told her the first elder's thoughts. After she heard it, she could not help but smile to herself. After dinner, Lung Ruoxue and the rest chatted for a while. Just as they were preparing to rest early so that they could enter the volcano the next day, they were interrupted by some uninvited guests. And among those people, there happened to be one of them who was bitten by Xiaohua and stepped on by the big bear in the afternoon. However, the man's injuries were lighter. After taking the elixir, his injuries were almost healed. However, the poison in his body could not be cured. Therefore, the man's face was now like a pig's head. As for their team leaders, they were actually acquaintances. Miss Lung, why are you here? Qi was overjoyed to see Lung Ruoxue and the others in his own territory. Why has young Master Qi also come to the floating cloud city? Lung Ruoxue chuckled and asked indifferently. After seeing Qi, she understood the identity of those people in the afternoon. They were from the Qi family, one of the 8 great divine regions. No wonder they were so overbearing. The floating cloud city's volcano erupted, so I've come to check on the losses. Qi explained and then asked. Where is Miss Lung and the others? We came to that volcano to train, but we didn't expect it to erupt just in time, so we stayed here. Lung Ruoxue replied perfunctorily. Oh, Qi nodded. At this time, the pig head beside him said impatiently, Young master, these are the people who injured the young lady in US. You shut up. Qi bellowed. Actually, he was in a difficult position. Although he didn't want to be enemies with Lung Ruoxue and the others, he couldn't just ignore the matter of his unruly cousin. How could this be good? His brows were so tightly knitted that they were about to come together. Young Master Qi, are you here to settle the score with us? Lung Ruoxue asked with a smile. No, I just heard from my subordinate that my cousin was bullied just now, so I came to take a look. Qi quickly explained. That woman is your cousin? They and the pig beside you were all injured by me. I wonder how young Master Qi would like to deal with them? Lung Ruoxue went straight to the point. She didn't care how conflicted QiuQiu was. They had only met a few times anyway. However, if QiuQiu was a reasonable person, there was no harm in befriending him. I believe that what happened this afternoon was a misunderstanding, so our Qi family will not pursue this matter. However, can Miss Lung please give me the antidote? They were bitten by your little red snake, and I have given them many antidotes, but none of them had any effect. QiuQiu said very politely. There is no antidote, unless they let Xiaohua bite them again. However, if that happens, they will be poisoned even more severely. Young Master Qi, you can let them choose. Lung Ruoxua laughed evilly. Even if your Qi family doesn't want to pursue this matter, she still wants to. Not just anyone could covet her beastie. QiuQiu was in a difficult position. Young Master Qi, did you just say that your Qi clan will not pursue this matter? Lung Ruoxua chuckled as she asked. Yes, I am. QiuQiu nodded, his handsome face full of question marks. He thought to himself, what does Miss Lung mean? You guys don't want to pursue it, but what if I want to pursue it? Lung Ruoxia's face was filled with worry. QiuQiu was speechless. He really didn't know what to say. Young Master Qi, because of your cousin's rudeness, my cute little QiuQiu and baby have been hurt physically and mentally. How do you think we should settle this score? Lung Ruoxua said with a smile that was not a smile. Before she knew that the woman was from the Qi family, she only wanted to make the woman wish she was dead. However, now that she knew that she was the young lady of the Qi family, why should she be polite? If he didn't slaughter them now, when would he? Can you let me see the two little beasts first? He had heard some of his cousin's subordinates mention what had happened before. However, he naturally did not believe everything that her subordinates said. All right, QiuQiu baby, come over. Lung Ruoxua called out to the corner. Sister, we're here. A weak voice rang in everyone's ears. Everyone turned around in unison, and saw two dirty little beasts limping out from the corner. The two little beasts' furs were dull and covered in dust. Their tangled fur was stained with bright red. At this moment, their eyes were filled with fear. Their palm-sized bodies trembled nonstop as they slowly walked towards Lung Ruoxua. Please keep reading 0 and MYB0XN0VEL. Com. Chapter 1089, Little QiuQiu's Abduction 1. When Fengda and the rest saw this, they were speechless. However, they had a better tolerance. They were already familiar with Lung Ruoxia's beastly habits, so they were used to it. When the great elder saw the appearance of the two little beasts, he was stunned with his mouth wide open. After he recovered, he couldn't help but secretly sigh. It was really like what kind of person raised what kind of beast. That little girl's beasts were actually the same as her, two extremely black-bellied little things. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, it would have been hard for him to believe that the two little beasts who had been playing with him just a moment ago had become so miserable and pitiful in the blink of an eye. No wonder when the Qi family arrived, the two little fellows immediately ran to a corner sneakily. They were busy dressing up. As you can see, their current state is caused by your cousin. These two little things were originally lively and cute, but now, they are full of fear. Moreover, after we rescued them, they did not eat, drink, or talk to anyone. They have been hiding in a corner. Young Master Qi, you must seek justice for my two poor little fellows. Lung Ruoxia's face was filled with sorrow as she spoke. In order to cooperate with their master, QiuQiu and Baobao's little bodies trembled even more violently. QiuQiu was speechless. The two little beasts in front of him did look very pitiful. Their originally black and bright eyes were now dull and full of fear. It seemed that they were indeed frightened. But how was he going to uphold justice? Was he supposed to beat up his cousin to vent the anger of these two little beasts? I know that this matter is a little difficult for young Master Qi, but from my perspective, I can't help but vent my anger for my beastie. Sigh. Lung Ruoxia's face was also filled with a difficult expression. Then I wonder how can I let Miss Lung's beastie vent its anger? QiuQiu could not help but ask. You'll have to ask my beastie. They're the ones being bullied. As long as they're satisfied, I'm satisfied. Lung Ruoxua said with a smile. Then she turned to her beastie and said, QiuQiu baby, This brother Chi is going to avenge you. If you have any requests, just let me know. After listening to Lung Ruoxia's words, Qirui was speechless again. He didn't expect Miss Lung to let the two underage little beasts make their own requests. What could these two little fellows possibly come up with? Thinking of this, he felt a lot more at ease. However, it didn't take long for him to know how wrong he was. Because these two little guys were black-hearted. Really? Brother Chi, you can make the decision? QiuQiu's clear eyes were filled with confusion, but its voice was soft and sweet, giving people a very comfortable feeling. Don't worry, Brother Chi can still make such a decision. Qirui's heart softened when he heard the sweet child's voice. But we don't believe it. The baby's suspicion was more obvious. Compared to QiuQiu's obedient behavior, it was a rebellious little fellow. Brother Chi, you keep your word. I definitely won't lie to a child. Qirui was so depressed that he almost swore an oath. He couldn't help but think to himself, why isn't this little guy cute? Couldn't it be as obedient as the little thing just now? Then you'll have to show me some evidence. Bao Bao thought for a while, and said very seriously, I wonder what kind of evidence you want. Qirui asked curiously. That woman found us cute, so she made us look like this. We want to make her look like this too. The baby said like a little nationalistic youth. As he spoke, he clenched his little fists. She's already in a terrible state. Qirui said honestly. But we haven't even made a move yet. Bao Bao said unyieldingly. She was clearly implying that no matter how miserable she was, it wasn't caused by them, so it didn't count. Then if I let you vent your anger on her and beat her up, you won't hold it against me anymore? Qirui asked carefully. Why was this little fellow so difficult to deal with? Well, see. However, we're injured, so you'll have to pay for the medical expenses. The baby said again. Yes. The medical expenses are definitely not a problem. Qirui nodded. In his heart, how much could the medical expenses of these two little beasts cost? He should be able to settle it with some delicious food. Then Brother Chi, make an oath. I'm afraid you'll go back on your word. Bao Bao suggested. I have to swear? Don't you trust Brother Chi? Qirui was helpless. Oaths in the divine world could not be casually made. Otherwise, if he failed to do so, he would end up in a miserable state. Brother Chi, are you afraid? So Brother Chi was just coaxing us to play. The baby said with a disappointed look. His wrinkled little face clearly said, I told you you didn't trust me. I'm not afraid. I'll just make an oath. Qirui didn't want to be looked down upon by an underage little beast, so he could only bite the bullet and say, Brother Chi, repeat after me. Bao Bao said with a smile, completely different from the angry young man earlier. All right then. Qirui nodded. Please keep reading 0 in MYB 0x and 0VEL. I, Chi Momu, because my cousin injured two innocent and cute little beasts, am willing to compensate them on behalf of the Chi clan and satisfy all their requests. If I break the oath, I'll become a fool, and my cousin will become an ugly monster. The baby said loudly. When Qirui first started reciting it with Bao Bao, he didn't find anything wrong with it. However, in the end he realized that if he went back on his oath, not only would he become a fool, but his cousin would also become an ugly monster. However, once an oath was made, it couldn't be stopped, so he could only follow Bao Bao's instructions and fulfill the contents of the oath. After making their vows, the two little beasts were overjoyed. However, Qirui was extremely depressed. He felt that he had been tricked by the two seemingly innocent and cute little beasts. If this were to spread out, he would become the laughingstock of others. However, the uncooked rice had already been cooked. There was no point in him being depressed. Now, his only hope was that these two little beasts were not too difficult to deal with. Otherwise, wouldn't he really become a fool? Brother Chi, can you fulfill your promise to us now? Little QiuQiu asked in a soft voice. Its originally dim eyes also became clear and filled with anticipation. Chapter 1090. Little QiuQiu's abduction 2. I can. QiuQiu couldn't refuse such a pure gaze and quickly responded. Then hand over the woman who injured us first. Little QiuQiu pleaded. All right, he said. QiuQiu nodded and ordered his subordinates to bring his cousin over. When the young woman was brought here and saw Lung Ruoxue and the rest, a bloodthirsty look immediately appeared in her eyes. Not only did she remember these people, but she was also preparing to settle the score with them. She didn't expect it to come so soon. She couldn't help but sneer in her heart. However, she didn't feel smug for long before she was shocked by her cousin's shocking words. I've already had someone bring her here. You can take your revenge now. QiuQiu said without any emotion. QiuQiu, do you even know what you're saying? How can you join forces with outsiders to deal with me? The young woman immediately questioned QiuQiu. Shut up. This is all your fault, and you still have the face to say it. QiuQiu said loudly. If it wasn't for his aunt's good treatment of him, he wouldn't have bothered to care about this insensible cousin. Lung Ruoxue and the others had Mo Yin backing them up. Even if this cousin was the young mistress of the Qi family, when it came to the Qi family's interests, this useless cousin would probably be abandoned by the Qi family. Everything he did was for her own good. However, he was very clear that this willful cousin would not understand, and he did not want to explain anything. I only took a fancy to those two beasts. What's wrong with that? It's all because of them that I'm in this state. The young lady pointed at Lung Ruoxue and the rest, and said in dissatisfaction. Indeed, she did not look good now. Her originally beautiful face had turned into a fat pig's head, and her hands were swollen like two big pig trotters. However, what was more unacceptable to her was that QiuQiu, as her brother, not only did not avenge her, but he even wanted to hand her over to the two little beasts. This was really intolerable. We're not animals. QiuQiu and Baobao's eyes were filled with tears as they choked out. If you guys aren't animals, then am I? The young woman shouted angrily. At least you have some self-awareness. Baobao said in satisfaction. Tears were still swimming in her eyes, and they were in danger of falling at any moment. What are you two kids waiting for? Hurry up and take revenge. At this time, First Elder could not help but urge. Brother Qi, we're too young. Can we ask for help? Little QiuQiu looked up at QiuQiu and asked. You can't let your master help you. QiuQiu said after some thought. If Lung Ruoxue were to make a move, this cousin of his would probably lose her life. Well, ask Beastie for help. Big sister doesn't need to do it. Little QiuQiu had a look of don't worry. He said. Well, that's good. Yes, QiuQiu replied. He looked at the two little ones and knew that it would be difficult for them to take revenge on their own. Thank you, Brother Qi, you're such a good person. Little QiuQiu tried to please him. Hee. QiuQiu could only laugh drily and thought to himself. So this little thing is admitting that I'm a good person now? These two little fellows were still very wary of him just now. Big sister, can you let Big Brother and the rest come out and help us take revenge? Little QiuQiu requested of Lung Ruoxue. Sure. Lung Ruoxue nodded. With a thought, she moved her precious little beasts out of the bangle. As soon as Baby and the other beasts came out, they immediately surrounded QiuQiu and Baby and roared angrily. Damn it, who did this to you? It's her. QiuQiu and Baby's two little claws pointed at the young woman in unison. Damn it. You're really looking for death. Brothers, let's go and teach her a good lesson. The baby gave the order, and the little beasts rushed toward the young woman as fast as lightning. In an instant, the young woman's body was left with bloody marks and her clothes were torn. The pain made her scream continuously. However, no matter how she dodged, she could not escape from the few little beasts that were tightly wrapped around her like ghosts. As for Baby and the other beasts, they had been in the bracelet for too long and had been holding it in for a long time. Now that they finally had a chance to come out, of course, they had to vent their anger. Therefore, this unlucky and miserable woman became their first target. Please keep reading 0 and MYB 0x and 0VEL. Arc. Help me. The young woman kept calling for help. Miss Lung, can you make them stop? QiuQiu couldn't stand it anymore and couldn't help but plead. His cousin's current appearance was really too miserable. Don't worry, young Master Qi, they know what they're doing. They won't kill anyone. Lung Ruoxue smiled as she consoled him. Oh, Qirue could tell that Lung Ruoxue was only trying to save his cousin's life. Fortunately, he wasn't the one who offended her. Otherwise, he didn't know what would happen to him. However, it was better to live than to lose his life. He could not help but comfort himself. Don't worry, young man from the Qi family. The little fox will give you face and not take her life. Lu Feng also consoled. Your Excellency Lu Feng, why are you here? It was only then that Qirue noticed Lu Feng's presence. He couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Actually, he couldn't be blamed for having bad eyesight. It was just that Lung Ruoxue had so many subordinates, and Lu Feng was mixed in with them. If Lu Feng hadn't suddenly spoken up, he really wouldn't have noticed him. Of course it's for my disciple. Lu Feng pointed at the disheveled old man and said, Hee. Congratulations to your Excellency Lu Feng for accepting such a good disciple. Qirue said enviously. He recognized this old man, and knew that he was one of Lung Ruoxue's men. However, he did not expect that the Flowing Wind Pavilion would take this old man as a disciple. If that was the case, Lung Ruoxue would have another strong backer. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but feel a sense of relief at his decision. Fortunately, he had chosen to befriend these people. Otherwise, if he had offended them, the Qi clan's losses would definitely be incalculable. At this moment, his cousin's injury was nothing in his eyes. After all, this matter was caused by his stubborn cousin. Even if the family had knew about this, he would probably make the same decision. Chapter 1091. Little QiuQiu's Abduction 3. Then Qirue continued to chat with Lu Feng, and his cousin who was still suffering had long been forgotten. It was only when he was about to leave that he remembered his cousin who had fainted from the pain. Let's carry Miss back. Everyone, I'll take my leave first. See you tomorrow. Qirue bowed slightly and left with his subordinates. Hey, why did you leave? We haven't even paid for our medical fees. The baby shouted as he watched Qirue and the others leave. Its words almost made Qirue and the rest fall. However, they did not turn back, and even Qirue continued walking as if he did not hear anything. As for his subordinates, they were all thinking the same thing in their hearts. They had already beaten the young miss to a pulp. Yet that little beast still remembered their medical expenses? Then who was he going to ask for his young lattice medical expenses? Sister, that brother Qi is not a good person. He ran away without paying us back the money he owed us. Bao Bao complained to Lung Ruoxue. Qirue had suddenly become a bad person in its heart. What are you afraid of? Didn't he make an oath? The monk can run away, but the temple can also run away. If he doesn't pay, well, go to the Qi family to ask for it. Lung Ruoxue hugged the baby and consoled him. Yes, the medical expenses must be doubled. Bao Bao laughed evilly. One man and one beast echoed each other, making the four elders break out in cold sweat. However, looking at Feng De and the others' calm and composed appearance, the four couldn't help but sigh from the bottom of their hearts. They still had to train. Grandpa First Elder, you have to help us. Little QiuQiu suddenly said. Little QiuQiu, how do you want me to help you? The First Elder said helplessly. He would definitely help him. But this little thing couldn't be scheming against him, right? If you go to the Qi family to ask for money, the Qi family definitely won't dare to not give it. But if we go, little QiuQiu's face was sullen, and it couldn't continue halfway through its words. Didn't Qirue make an oath? What are you all afraid of? The great elder was speechless. So this little thing wanted him to help it get its medical expenses. However, it wasn't appropriate for him to ask for medical expenses with his status, right? He hesitated. Don't worry, Great Elder Grandpa. The money we ask for will definitely match your status. If it's too little, how can we trouble you? Bao Bao, who understood First Elder's thoughts, hurriedly said. In other words, the medical expenses from the Qi family would not be small. All right then. The Great Elder was speechless. Although he knew that these two little fellows only wanted to use him to pull the wool over his eyes, he was actually willing to be used by them. who asked him to be unable to refuse the request of these two little fellows. It seemed that being cute did have its advantages. After the two little beasts and the first elder finished their discussion, everyone planned to go to rest. However, before going to bed, Fengde and the others looked at the first elder with a little sympathy before entering their respective tents. The next morning, Leng Ruoxue and the rest had just finished their breakfast and were about to enter the volcano to check out the situation when QiuQiu came again. "What are you doing here? You're a bad person." The baby's eyes were bright and watery as she said in dissatisfaction. Baby, when did I offend you? Why are you a bad person now?" QiuQiu said helplessly. He thought that he had managed to coax this little fellow yesterday. However, it had only been one night, and he had become a bad person again. However, this little guy's clean appearance was really cute. No wonder his cousin was moved and wanted to take him for herself. "You still haven't paid the medical fees you owe us," Bao reminded. It was too late last night, I forgot," QiuQiu said, a little embarrassed. In fact, he felt that he had lost face, so he left in a hurry last night. As for the medical expenses of the two little beasts, he had made an oath. How could he renege on it? "Then pay us now." The baby stretched out his little paw and handed it to QiuQiu. All right." QiuQiu took out a piece of high-grade crystal and placed it on the baby's little paw. "What is this?" Bao looked at the tincture in her hand with dissatisfaction. Why did she give it this broken thing? It wasn't like there weren't any other big sister's space that was better than this, so it didn't care. High-grade crystal stones. Not only can you use them for cultivation, but you can also spend them like money. Are you satisfied? QiuQiu explained. In his heart, all beasties should like tincture. After all, it could help them cultivate. Unfortunately, he didn't know that he was facing a little beast that wasn't interested in tincture. Please keep reading 0 and MYB 0x and 0VEL. Come, I don't want this thing. Give me something useful. After the baby finished speaking, he threw the crystal that was emitting a light blue light back to QiuQiu. This is very useful, baby. You're still young and don't understand. This thing really is useful. QiuQiu tried his best to persuade her, but the baby turned his head to the other side and did not even look at him. Baby, what do you want? QiuQiu sighed softly and asked helplessly. These little things were too difficult to take care of. He really didn't know how Leng Ruoxue raised them. I only want heavenly treasures, nothing else. The baby opened her mouth and said, You're just a little beast. What do you want heavenly treasures for? You don't even know how to refine pills. QiuQiu asked in confusion. You're so stupid. It's only natural for beastie to like heavenly treasures. Otherwise, why would there be a guardian beast beside heavenly treasures? Besides, if beastie wants to eat heavenly treasures, there's no need to refine them into pills. Bao said with a look of disdain. That would be a waste. QiuQiu said softly, but he felt depressed in his heart. Boo. He was actually looked down upon by an underaged little beast. That's my business. Anyway, our medical expenses can only be heavenly treasures. Otherwise, you'll fail to fulfill your promise and become a fool. Bao reminded him with a wicked heart. Alright then. However, I don't have any heavenly treasures on me right now. If you want them, you must come with me to the Qi family to get them. QiuQiu said in resignation. Sure, but only after we're done with our business. Bao said. Are you guys going into the volcano? QiuQiu couldn't help but ask. Yesterday, he had heard Leng Ruoxue mention that they were going to enter the volcano to train. However, they had been blocked by the erupting lava. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.